journeys made today, and they have put out an amber traffic warning. There we are.
Yes, I mean, an amber traffic warning for different parts of the country, but basically, I mean, I think most people who travel on a regular basis now know that if you're going to take a journey that's in any way more than about an hour away, you're going to be stuck in traffic at some point on a motorway, aren't you?
You are. There's obviously some of our usual favourites are going to be particularly tricky. So today it's the M25, the western half of it, from the M1 all the way down to the M23 for Gatwick. But that in particular,
that's half of it.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then also between, specifically between the M3 and the M4, which includes Heathrow Airport. And
yes.
by the way, today is going to be the busiest day of the winter at Heathrow, as well as at Glasgow, at Luton and at Newcastle airports. There's going to be problems on the M4 heading west from London towards Bristol. Then the A34 making an appearance between Newbury and Oxford. M27 doesn't often get much of a shout, but Southampton to Portsmouth is going to be a lot busier later. M6 in the West Midlands, what a surprise, all the way from Junction 4 to Junction 11.
Take the toll road.
Yeah, exactly. And then the A38. Yes, that old road winds down through Bristol. I think that's mostly to do with Bristol Airport, which is going to be very busy. And anybody who knows the road access to that knows that it's a mess.
Yes. One of the things that I found rather encouraging, though, was that the sort of the people in charge of the highways in Britain have said they're going to lift about 95% of the roadworks off the road and allow people to actually use the road as it was intended, rather than have it being sort of stripped down to one lane or two lanes instead of three.
Yes, and that's a reflection of the fact that the highways people know that everyone is on the move, and so therefore, of course, they want to make things as easy as possible. Can I talk about railways? Because it's exactly the opposite there. My goodness me. I don't wish to be London-centric, because I know that most of the talk audience isn't in London, but you might well have to go there. So they're closing down basically 3 of the biggest stations in Britain.
Are they?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Tomorrow, London St Pancras International. That's the hub for the Midland Main Line, which runs from Sheffield, Derby, Nottingham, and Leicester down to London. That's going to be severed till the 29th of December, inclusive. Yes.
Does that include the Eurostar as well?
No, it doesn't. It's only that line. So you'll be able to get Eurostar to Paris and Brussels. In addition to that, the southeastern trains will run, but nothing. I mean, for instance, it took me an hour and 40 minutes to fly from Gatwick to Vienna. It's going to take an awful lot longer than that to get the train from Leicester to London from tomorrow onwards. Then it gets to Christmas Eve. Everything winds down early. Yeah. And guess what? No trains on Christmas Day. That's usual. Almost no trains on Boxing Day. We've got some in the Merseyside area. Gatwick Airport has a link from London. Stansted Airport has a link from London. Yeah. But then on the 27th of December, when you think everything's opening up, well, it won't. In particular, London Paddington Station, second busiest in the world, in the UK at least. That's going to stay closed till the 29th. And Liverpool Street, the busiest of all in the City of London, that's where you get trains to Essex, to East Anglia, to Stansted Airport. That's going to be closed all the way through from Christmas Day to New Year's Day inclusive. And of course, various other bits of engineering works, some on the east coast, on the west coast main line, and that then merges seamlessly with the first of 5 months of strikes.
Yes,
the West Coast.
Our friends on Avanti, right?
Yeah, West Coast Main Line. The RMT union is unhappy with how much train managers get for working on their days off, and so they will be striking on New Year's Eve, on the 2nd of January, and then every Sunday from the 12th of January through to the 25th.
Aren't they striking the 22nd and 23rd of this month as well?
They were going to. Very good recall. They actually postponed that.
Oh, did they?
That because they got a better offer. So the train company, it'd be an interesting talking point for your lovely audience. The train company said, OK, you can have roughly 250 for working on a day off, or 300 if it's a weekend. And they put that to the members, who threw it out and just said that's not enough. So I don't know if 250 for a day off or £300 in at a weekend is a lot. It sounds to me a lot, but maybe in railway land it isn't. Bear in mind, of course, that the drivers at the sharp end of the train, they all get £600 for working on a day off. So that's a bit to be in.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Absolutely unbelievable. They've only just been given a decent pay rise. Why don't they just bloody well get on with it?
Well, you can ask Mick Lynch of the RMT.
I will.
Train drivers are not on strike, though, anywhere that I can see. And the Elizabeth line in London, we've got a bit of action.
So would you say, because I know we used to have this in the past, like last year or so, if your RMT are on strike, there can sometimes still be trains. It's just when ASLEF go on strike, there aren't any. So it'll be disruption rather than no trains, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. So what you will get on all of those strike dates is you will get a skeleton service from one train an hour, London to Birmingham, to Manchester, to Liverpool, up to Preston as well, maybe every couple of hours to Carlisle and Glasgow. No trains to Edinburgh, no trains along the North Wales coastline.
The skeleton service will also mirror the fact that you'll look like a skeleton when you get off at the other end, because there won't be any buffet car probably, because they won't open it.
Well, I think that will be open, because it's not the train managers who do that. The train managers check your tickets and supervise the...
Yeah, but even now it's still hit and miss as to whether they've actually got anything. Sometimes they go, we've got some food and some drinks, but we haven't got any hot drinks because the hot drinks machine isn't working, or we haven't got any cold drinks because we didn't manage to load those up, or we're going to shut it early because we haven't got enough people to man it. I mean, the whole thing is an absolute disgrace.
Well, you could fly, but good luck with that. Very busy today at the airports. And if we talk briefly about the ferries, the main link across the Irish Sea from Holyhead to Dublin is severed, and it will be till the 15th of January.
Why?
And we've been looking at the prices of flights. So Ryanair, because so many people obviously will want to go to Ireland, maybe they've got family there for Christmas.
Yeah.
Normally you get, each ferry holds about 2,000 passengers, so
but why isn't it running?
It's not running because of damage sustained during Storm Dara, if you can remember that far back. And so
surely got more than one ferry, haven't they?
They've got right. So it's the main link. They've got also Fishguard and Pembroke to Rosslare, and they put on an extra Fishguard to Dublin thing, but I don't know if anybody's ever tried to get to Fishguard. It does take about a week in my experience. That's in the far west of Wales, and furthermore the ferry itself takes twice as long as the one from Holyhead, and so you can't get that much happening there. And in you've got Cairn Ryan in southwest Scotland to both Larne and to Belfast, but again Cairn Ryan, crikey, you lose the will to live.
Well, even trying to get to Stranraer if you're in Scotland is a nightmare, because it's all the way down. You're practically driving to Ireland by the time you get down there.
But to Dublin, so there we are if you're in a hurry to get away.
That's very expensive. You even get a private jet for that. What about any last-minute bargains that we might wish to offer to the...
There's loads.
Lovely
I found absolutely the best deal, £180 for a week, including flights and accommodation in a 4-star hotel. The catch is... and this is going on Christmas Eve, coming back on New Year's Eve. It's going from Birmingham. The catch is it's to Glasgow. So, and a lot of people would say
that is good, though.
Yeah, well, exactly. Very, very good deal. Unbelievable. Two people, £180 each, and you'll be staying in 4-star luxury. If you want to go south, then probably the best deal if you want to avoid Christmas. British Airways holidays flying from Heathrow to Nice, 3 nights there, nice hotel, about 190 quid, including your flights and your luggage and everything.
And where will you be spending Christmas? Will you be back here, or are you going to keep on your travels?
Unfortunately, you and I know, Mike, that travel at Christmas, something unravels. We've got no idea what it will be. Something will go wrong. So I'm just getting a little bit of a break in here in beautiful Vienna first, and then I will be heading for back to London and reporting on what's gone wrong. And I don't know what it will be, but I fear it will be something. I hope I'm completely wrong. I hope I'm sitting around drinking tea for the whole of the festive season. That would be a first.
Well, just push the boat out and have a glass of eggnog, perhaps.
Ooh, okay. Thank you.
Do me a favour. And listen, great to talk to you, Simon. Thank you very much indeed. Simon Calder, travel correspondent, guru, in fact, at The Independent. Let's get a voice note from James.
Morning, Mike. It's James from Blackburn. Just want to wish you a Merry Christmas and thank you for this year, because You keep me sane. You keep loads of us sane. Yeah, next year's probably not going to get any better, but at least, you know, we have somewhere where we can all go and laugh about it. No growth in the economy. I thought Angela Rayner's, well, she keeps telling us every time I see her on box, she's going, we're going for growth. And then, oh, the clips she's showing of him, it's hard to choose a worse one, but I think the one that you've just shown where he's going, the sense of pride of woman is going to be delivering the budget, the pride. I mean, he looks so excited about it, doesn't he? Ooh, gives me the EBGBs. And yeah, there's too many to choose from. But yeah, Merry Christmas.
Well done, James. Thank you very much indeed. It's true. I mean, it's unbelievable. We may have to play it again in a little while, old Keir Starmer and the Rachel Reeves being a woman thing. I mean, this is a guy who didn't even know what a woman was a few months ago. He wasn't sure whether they had a penis or not. Heaven's sake. Let's get another gaff on board. Kevin O'Sullivan, the old faithful.
Those things we were talking about. Give me a ring. 0344 499 1000. Joe Concha in America next. Stay tuned. Oh, have I? I've just worked out. I'm supposed to go in 60 seconds. So, is Isabel still there? No, I'll talk you through it. I'll tell you what we've got coming back on the rest of the show. Yes, right. Later on, we are going to be talking, as I say. Stay tuned, because after we've spoken to Joe Concha about. So stay tuned. Got an excellent second hour for you. I think this time I can safely say, see you after the news.
I mean, why don't you just talk? This is what we do for a living, right? You're supposed to talk. Just talk. You never say, I'm going to talk about why I've not stopped talking, or what's coming up in the next hour. Never mind. How about this? Courtney in Cheltenham. Not long ago, Keir couldn't even define what a woman was, yet now he's our champion. What a load of hypocrisy. How convenient to use gender for your virtue-signalling narrative. We see you, Keir, says Courtney. Neil in Dorset says, has anyone noticed that when the left are unhappy with the country, there is endless whining, griping and complaining? Yet when the right are unhappy, we make up funny songs and poems to ease our burden. Tells you something about people, doesn't it? Merry Christmas to all that talk, says Neil in Dorset. Thank you very much, Neil. Yeah, I mean, we're nearly there, aren't we? I mean, just 4 days to go till Christmas Eve. If you are planning on driving today, just have a look out the window, because it might be better if you wait till tomorrow. Because apparently there's going to be about 29 million other people driving as well on the roads, and half of them seem to be shut. But, we'll bring you all the details on that as we go. Peter Blexley coming up in a little while. We're also going to talk about the High Court and Sharia law. We mentioned it on the show earlier this week. Apparently Britain is now the centre in the Western world for Sharia courts. People actually come here from other countries to get Sharia rulings. Why? What's going on? It's 8:40.
Plus. On YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:42. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, and we will be here, of course, all the way through next year as we turn the corner into 2025. We'll be doing one more show before New Year, which will be a week on Monday, but after today, I'm going to take a week off and go and chill out somewhere and lie down in a dark room and try and see whether I can figure out what the awful hell is going on with this bleeding government. Let's talk to Charlotte Littlewood, former counter-extremism coordinator, because a story that came across our desks earlier this week, the Times investigation on Sharia law, or Sharia law, I suppose you might call it, in the UK. Apparently there's more Sharia courts in this country than in any other country, seemingly in the Western Hemisphere. And we're slightly concerned that many people here, including about 100,000 people who've got married under Sharia law, are not actually legally married. But there's also been a High Court fatwa ruling which has raised alarm over all of these Sharia courts in the UK. This is a story that was in the Times as well. A British Sharia council was given credibility by the High Court when the judge used one of its fatwas to decide a case. Amazing. The Islamic Council, founded by the hardline preacher Haytham al-Haddad, issued a religious ruling forbidding a health trust from allowing a brain-damaged child to die. Secular campaigners said using fatwas in civil courts undermined liberal democracy. Sounds like it, doesn't it? Charlotte, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
I mean, we were very shocked actually here at Talk when we saw that Times investigation earlier on this week, which discovered that Britain is the Western capital for Sharia councils. But what we didn't know, and what that story didn't say, was that regular courts in this country seem to be sort of recognising it.
Actually, that's not something I was aware of, regular courts recognising Sharia councils. Very much the policy has been that this is not recognised in legal courts and law, and that this should not develop into a parallel legal system. So that is incredibly worrying.
Yeah.
Religious courts or councils should not have any recognition in law. We have Jewish religious courts as well, and the Muslim religious courts or councils, as they should be referred to.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, is this the first time this has happened, as far as you're aware?
That's the first time that has happened. The growth in the use of Sharia councils and the leaning on by families and the pressure sometimes amongst families to use religious counsel rather than UK law and civil process, that has been an increasing phenomenon and something that concerns us around women's rights in particular. And it's something actually that the European Convention on Human Rights restricted our ability to do anything around intervening and limiting religious courts. But since we've now left the European Union, it might be a time to readdress what we can do to investigate the prevalence of women's rights abuses and actually look into regulating, not banning, but regulating to ensure that these councils are in keeping with law. And that's the same for other religious councils as well.
Right. I mean, why couldn't we just say, as a general rule and a general principle, that, you know, if you live in Britain and you work in Britain and you, you know, are making your living in Britain or whatever it is, you are subject to the laws of Britain. You can't just invent your own court system and use that to judge problems that you may encounter in the course of your dealings with your community.
So we have freedom of religion belief, which extends to allowing those to engage in spiritual practices that are important to them. And if a spiritual practice is seeking religious guidance on things, as long as it doesn't run in countenance to our law, it's not a problem. But what we do have is cases of domestic violence being endorsed, marital rape being allowed. Haytham al-Haddad...
Cousins marriage as well, right?
Say that again?
Cousins marrying each other as well. Presumably.
Yeah, and polygamy, and Haytham al-Haddad in particular is a very problematic figure. He used to be the senior judge on the very first Sharia Council in the UK in 1982, and he has condoned FGM. He has said domestic violence between partners is something for them to figure out between the two of them. And he's very against homosexuality. He's called it a scourge, and he has likened Jews to apes and pigs, allegedly. So he is a particularly problematic figure, and he advises over a few Sharia councils. So we need to regulate and remove figures like him and councils contravening British law. And we need to ensure that women are married, and men, that marriage in general is done civilly and religiously. That would be a key recommendation of mine. If you want some kind of religious ceremony, I've just got married myself. We had a beautiful sort of humanist ceremony first, and then we got the legal bit done. You're well within your rights to kind of have any kind of agreement between the two of you, but you must, I think, if you enter into a religious marriage, that whether that's through the Jewish religious courts, there's a Christian one, but that's actually in tandem with our British law, and the Muslim courts, you must also get a civil marriage, because otherwise you're not protected in divorce for your assets. And it's been there's a case study in which a man used the Sharia council in order to avoid the asset splitting should he have a divorce. Some women are not aware of the rights that they're foregoing without having a civil marriage as well. So I think it must be made mandatory that you have a civil marriage, as well as whatever kind of festivity you want to have alongside that.
Yeah. Because we also learned from the Times piece about wills, that you can make a will via Sharia court, in which case a woman, say if she's a sibling of a brother, gets half the amount that the brother gets because he's a man. You know, it all seems mad to me. If it was down to me, I would just say, look, you know, none of these things should exist. Sorry, you know, if you want to make a will, you make a will under the British law. You make a marriage under the British law. You know, if you want to dance around in circles and put, you know, a candle on your head, great, no problem. But that doesn't mean it's legal.
So I agree, but I think that strong regulation will get to a point where the councils that are following the law, I mean, there is one council in Birmingham that went as far as to say that divorce can happen because Prophet Muhammad said to a woman that she may divorce her husband just because she doesn't like him. And he follows that approach. That's more liberal than our Marriage Act in 2022 that said that, you know, that was divorce was only allowed if fault was found. So you have some councils that are really quite liberal in the way they're approaching this, and they're an opportunity for good, I would say. And then you have the Haytham al-Haddad-esque councils, which I would say are criminal. And that's what we need to really regulate, crack down on, and ensure that there's a ranking system, that they're shut down, and that the regulation is such that imams are prosecuted if they are not having the people married in front of them also civilly married too, and ensuring that that woman in particular has her full rights protected.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlotte, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Have a good Christmas. Charlotte Littlewood, former counter-extremism coordinator. Let's get a voice note from Sean.
Sean from Bridlington here, up in the north. God, it's cold, mate. I tell you what, I've been out walking the dog on the seafront. It's so cold up north, I just saw a socialist with his hands in his own pockets. Can't believe it. Happy Christmas. Bye.
Yeah, well done. I see what you did there, Sean. Thank you very much indeed. Coming up, Peter Blexley's going to join us for some Christmas cheer. This is Talk.
DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. It is, of course, Friday, so we've got gaffes galore for you, and we're playing them all the way through the show. Here's one from Julie Hartley-Brewer.
We're just going to have our little regular check to see whether we are fitting into that 0.1% of women in this country that do, according to our Prime Minister, have a penis. So, and ladies, if you'd like, ladies, however you identify, if you'd like to have a look at the same time, we're just going to have a quick look and just check whether our penis has happened overnight or not. No?
No.
Still haven't got one?
No.
Amazing. I'm yet to find a woman with a penis, and yet Keir Starmer reckons there are tens of thousands of them.
The less said about that, the better, probably. Let's talk to Peter Blexley, former Metropolitan Police detective, of course. Peter Blexley, very good morning to you. Greetings of the season.
Good morning to you, and season's greetings, of course.
Absolutely right. Unfortunately, we haven't got a very seasonal story to talk about. Britain's youngest knife murderers have a minimum jail sentence, and then they've had it increased to 10 years. And this is a guy who was born in Anguilla, who lived in Birmingham, and when he was killed last year by two 13-year-old boys, thought to be Britain's youngest knife murderers. They were sent to prison. They can't be identified, but at least now they've had their prison sentences extended.
Yes, they've had 19-year-old Sean Cesarhade murdered brutally, 4 stab wounds, one of which was 23 centimetres long.
Wow.
So both went from one side of his body to the other. A fractured skull as well, fatal injuries from which he could not recover. And at the time of killing 19-year-old Sean, murderers were actually 12 years old. Let's ponder that for a moment.
British governments. Problems are not being addressed by our politicians and parliamentarians. The issues are not being covered by the corporate media, but the rise of new media, the rise of social media, and everybody else raising awareness is going to make a difference. That's what we are doing here today. As you guys know, over the last few months with this new socialist government, a lot of things are coming out. Whether decisions made by these guys, the Labour Party, or previous governments, successive governments, a lot of scandals are being exposed. Some of them are not sexy enough for the media. Some of them are not sexy enough to discuss, apparently, even by MPs. But they are important. They are ruining our country. They are stealing your money. This story is about billions and billions of pounds being stolen. Of course, a lot of people are profiting from this. A lot of corporations, a lot of lobbyists, and those who have disappeared. Whistleblowers are being shut down and being completely oppressed. We have a situation where the media are covering up on behalf of the government. And in this video, we will be exposing this. This Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, yes, he has inherited some of the problems from the previous governments, especially the few Conservative governments that we've had over the last decade or so. But they are all in it together. He didn't oppose any of this. For example, let's talk about the project that was supposed to be a nice surprise, a nice present to this kingdom, because they sold it to us as a nice thing. Then it all went down. HS2, right? Let's talk about this one now. The high-speed rail 2. They said, we're going to build new trains, new train lines. They're going to go fast. You're going to save about 5 minutes, 20 minutes. Ooh. And then they said, we're going to help the north of England. George Osborne was proud of it. Boris Johnson, all of them. Keir Starmer now. What did they do? It was all based on lies. Money has been taken from your pockets, billions. We are now looking at over 100 billion pounds. This socialist government are talking about a 20 billion pound black hole left by Rishi Sunak, right? They are saying they don't have enough money to pay our pensioners. They don't have enough money to make sure the elderly are not freezing to death this winter. We don't have enough money to help our veterans. We don't have enough money for anything. We have money for illegal migrants, and we have money for the corporations who want to steal your money. Over 100 billion pounds. This is being stolen and being wasted, and they're covering it up. This morning, in the House of Commons, in Parliament, we had parliamentarians getting together to scrutinise HS2. What happened with HS2, by the way? They said it's only going to cost a few £1 billion. It's going to be finished quickly. It's going to help people to move around the north. They cancelled the northern side. They basically, the whole project became about helping the rich, because the tickets, if it even gets completed, they are now doing premium tickets, VIP tickets, because they're not going to have cheap, affordable tickets, because it's an expensive line. They are doing that to help the economy in London. Corporations in London are waiting for this. It's not going to happen. They continue to say, well, we don't have money for this, we don't have money for that. The recent estimate that came out says 66 million pounds, just disappearing. That's a lot of money. It's not even that. It's 100 billion plus. They are denying it. They are misleading Parliament. They're lying to you directly. This is what they're doing to your country. They're destroying the countryside. They're destroying people's homes. The compensations are not happening. Whistleblowers are being told to shut up. The media are not covering it. And now we are going to be talking about this. In this live stream, I sat down with Michael Gross. He was one of the largest claimants in terms of in terms of claimants for the compensation in history, in British history. He's a landowner in Euston. For those who are familiar with this project, Euston, London, big debate around whether to actually have the high-speed rail 2 project there or not. He wasn't compensated properly, it was lied to, many others as well, and he has a platform compared to many others whose homes have been destroyed, and everybody else. I'm going to talk to Michael. I sat down with him. Just be patient with this, just listen to him, because it's very important to find out what's going on in your country. These are the stories that the media doesn't think it's sexy enough for you to know about. When they tell you about the £20 billion black hole, we can show you a proper black hole. Let's go and see. And Rachel Reeves, Keir Starmer, every single one of them, they're lying to you. And the problem is also the state, the faceless bureaucrats, permanent secretaries of these departments, including the Transport Department. Let's go to Michael Gross. Right, we're now joined by Michael Gross, who is, obviously, as I said, the largest CPO claimant, the compulsory purchase order complainant that we've had in British history, I believe. Welcome to the show, Michael. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yes, I was, but I settled the case.
Oh, yes. Yes. It's a bit of a mess, the whole scandal in general, considering that the media regularly, every now and then, talk about HS2 once a year or something like that. Today, obviously, we had a big session in Parliament, and of course, the civil servants will get involved, MPs will get involved, people would expect answers. So let's just go through some of the issues. Obviously, we're going to talk about your own personal thing that you've been dealing with, but also your perspective on what happened this morning, because they don't seem to be quite clear and transparent with people in terms of the cost, right?
Look, I think it's very important to understand that HS2 is the biggest Ponzi scheme in British history. They never should have embarked on it because they never had this skill base even to understand how much it would cost, let alone to achieve it. And whereas that they should have done is gone for a competitive tender in the 8 countries that had an existing system, they decided to do it themselves. Now, even if you assume that that was pure stupidity, within a year they knew they were in deep trouble, and they started the process of covering up in order to get the funding from Parliament.
But that's the thing, because I want to talk about, obviously, a lot of people would expect Parliament to be there on behalf of normal people, literally the House of Commons. But the Public Accounts Committee and these guys, and obviously civil servants and the MPs themselves, there's a problem with these committees because they don't seem to be accepting evidence from whistleblowers. They don't seem to accept evidence from landowners, those whose lands and houses and everything else, their areas being destroyed and going to be destroyed. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. The last straightforward and honest chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, who's just been appointed the anti-corruption star, was Margaret Hodge, and her last session she called out HS2 as she said she didn't believe the figures. And Meg Hillier took a completely different approach. and she orchestrated the lies that she got from the HS2 directors and the civil servants, notably Dame Bernadette Kelly. And Dame Bernadette Kelly today's public,
She's the permanent secretary for the department, isn't she?
civil servant, permanent secretary, admitted that the whole thing was a Horlicks, and admitted that they didn't have the figures that it was going to cost, the time it was going to take. In other words, they kept on talking about a reset, by which I think they means is all right, but we'll ignore the fact that we wasted and stole £60 billion, which torpedoed the economy of the country, and we'll reset. And I, the biggest liar of the lot, am still in charge. Now, yesterday, the Prime Minister, who was also informed at an early date that HS2 was out of control, but didn't reply to the letter, said the country couldn't afford 11 billion to bring the 3 million women's pensions into line. He couldn't afford that, but there doesn't seem to be a limit to what he can afford to spend on HS2.
But that's the thing, what we've had from both parties in government is, even on the Tories, we had the same confusions, because Houston, obviously, which again relates to your case, but just generally speaking, there were, over the last few years, there were conversations, it's going to not happen, it's going to happen. Now they've said it's going to happen anyway, extension, different degrees, but the budget was announced. There wasn't really any mentions about the HS2. Even recently, there's not really enough mention. Why is it that we're not really getting a revolt from the general public? Is it because the media is not really talking about it properly? Maybe the public don't think it's a priority?
No, I don't think it's that. The media have been silenced. Financial Times, Jill Plymouth told people that her editor had been instructed, threatened by the government not to publish anything adverse about HS2. Jill Plymouth knew for years that HS2 was in trouble and there was fraud. Ed Malnick of the Telegraph knew. The BBC, who did do 2 panoramas where you can see the frauds, but they directed the arrows to the outside numbers, not to the bullseye. The BBC, as ITV and Sky, have a lot to answer for. We supplied them with all the details. They would not interview us. They did not. Only Panorama dealt with it in part twice. So
not many people watch that show anyway. Not many people watch it.
All I can say is that the Mail, the Telegraph, the Times, and the FT did their best to divert attention from the hard fact that it was a project that should never have started, should never have been run in the way it was useless, couldn't be finished. They've already given up most of it. The cost per mile at 10 times or more than any other similar railway elsewhere in the world. And yet, at the time when the old age pensions are dying of cold, the women pensioners are being shafted, 20,000 plus CPO claimants got shafted by Deloitte's and their planted man, head of property, Michael Eckert. Michael Eckert kept on saying, I can only pay what's in my budget. Well, the CPO legislation is designed to provide fair and reasonable compensation. Michael Eckert and HS2's budget were merely the phony figures to get royal assent from 2017 onwards.
Well, that's the thing. So you mentioned compensation. What about actual justice and compensation for those who've had their families ruined, their homes and their lives? Do you have any hope for that or not?
Well, I suppose you've got the same hope with the post office. The truth will out eventually. As in the case of most Ponzi schemes, this will collapse because it's eating up more and more money. The estimates they're given are baseless and no substance to them.
But that's what I was going to say, because you did also mention, obviously, you call it the Ponzi scheme, and a lot of people obviously are saying this is a scandal like the post office thing that you mentioned, and also the blood infections and everything else. But some people in the mainstream would say, oh no, you're exaggerating, this isn't as important as those two. But there was a time a few years ago when nobody was talking about the post office thing and the blood infection, that I guess it was the same thing. So you're saying that eventually, when this whole thing blows up, it's also as bad, right?
It takes lunatics like Sabay, I'm sorry, I don't know his first name, but the gentleman who got the programme done, or me, or a few others, who are effectively Winston Smiths against Big Brother. This has been such a massive cover-up, massive, going through the government, who were fully embedded in HS2. This idea that they didn't know is the biggest lie of all. That Treasury, Cabinet Office, and of course the DFT were fully embedded in HS2, took part in the cover-ups, took part in everything. And that's the truth. Now, whether the 20,000 CPO victims will put a few £100 together so there's a fighting fund, whether the 3 million women who got built on their pensions by Keir Starmer will put together a fighting fund, whether Meg Hillier and all the other people, Rizrat Ghani, McLaughlin, Grayling, Shapps, whether the rule of law, certainly under Mark Rowley, the police have declined to investigate, never mind prosecute. They said there are no grounds for investigation. I can't think of bigger grounds on a bigger crime. The same applies to Lisa Ostrovsky, the former head of the Serious Fraud Office. Nobody wanted to know.
But they keep talking about the black hole that the Tories left. This is a bigger black hole than that, isn't it? But you know, this in terms of the people, the cover up and people who took advantage of this. You have the actual politicians. You have the people who are part of the HS2 project. But there's a group of people who are always constant, and that's the civil servants, the top civil servants, obviously. You also mentioned
and politicians, the Transport Committee members and the chairman. PAC chairman, the ethics committee wouldn't hear anything. I could name you dozens of MPs who just didn't want to know. You see, an MP, his first priority is to grease his way up, as high up the pole of power as he can. He will not challenge the party, he will go with it.
Yeah.
I think I'll tell you a story which highlights how rotten Parliament is. The leading MP against HS2 was the late Dame Cheryl Gillum. She campaigned vigorously. Many years ago, we got to see her. And when I say we, it was my lawyer, my lobbyist, his assistants. There were a lot of people there, and her people. And we obviously don't have as much evidence as we have now. We have a 180-page report from former leading fraud investigator of HMRC. But we had a lot of evidence. And the first thing she said, well, it's pretty terrible what you're saying. I would need to see something in writing. Well, she got it the next day, but didn't react. But that's not a terrible thing. She then said, unprompted, I don't care what you send me, if it embarrasses, I use that word again, embarrasses, let alone harms, my friends, Theresa, i.e. the Prime Minister Theresa May, or Chris, i.e. the Secretary of State for Transport, Grayling, I will not do anything.
What?
And that measures how rotten this is.
It's disgusting. I was going to say about finally, I mean, what is your message to the new Transport Secretary now? Because obviously the ministers keep changing every 10 minutes anyway over the last 10 or 15 years. What's your message to her?
I know nothing about her except she hasn't. I don't believe, like most of the cabinet, she's ever held a well-producing job. She certainly doesn't understand this. She's doing what she's told. Grayling, in one of his many admissions, said, I had no power. In other words, all the power was Sir Philip Rutman, who started it, and Grayling and Bernadette Kelly. So she won't know anything about it, and she won't engage with us. We are her predecessor, the lady who kept on claiming her phone had been stolen. She wouldn't engage with us.
Yeah.
Shax's answer to when we provided him with the damning figures, I don't know, 5 years ago, I don't recognise your figures.
Wow.
No, of course he didn't want to recognise it.
No, of course not. It's okay. Well, the mainstream media refuse to actually focus on the actual problems. Don't worry, we are here on TCTV and other new media outlets to keep raising this issue. Thank you so much, Michael, for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
That was Michael Gross, who continues to fight against this state. It's not really just about the government, it's the state, because it's all of them. Parties, Parliament backbench MPs, government ministers, junior ministers, secretaries of state, permanent secretaries of departments, well, in this case we're talking about obviously the Treasury as well as the Transport Department. Whistleblowers have been completely attacked. Those who have had their lives and their families and their homes ruined have been told to shut up. Nothing is getting done. They lied to everybody. I would say holding this shiny present, high-speed rail 2. It's going to help you, apparently. They said the same about mass economic migration. We're going to bring all the foreigners who want to do the jobs that you're not doing. It's going to help the economy. We're going to have the GDP going up massively. That was a lie. There's a massive net cost to mass migration. There's a massive problem when it comes to these nice projects being shown to you. In reality, they're stealing your money, over £100 billion. Even right now, they continue to deny the existence of these reports. They're not giving you guys, they're not even telling us about the updated figures anymore. They're not even being held to account. If you ask questions, you will be in trouble. What are they going to do to me? I will continue to talk about this. I will continue to talk about all the scandals that we are seeing. Despite the fact that a number of people have gone into trouble, I don't care. You will have to raise this issue. And people like Michael will continue to raise this issue. They're telling me we don't have money to make sure our pensioners don't freeze to death this winter. We don't have money for the farmers. We don't have money for a lot of all the different groups of people, including veterans and British homeless people. They still have to wait in the queue while illegal migrants get priority housing. We don't have money. £20 billion black hole, £20 billion black hole compared to what they are doing to this. Our money is being sent abroad. Your taxpayers' money, all that is being sent abroad. They're giving it to foreign countries. Let's get some reaction from the live chat while we can. Super chat from Ryan, thank you, saying, within all the misery, don't forget who you are. Enjoy Christmas with loved ones. Never let the bastards get you down. Merry Christmas. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ryan, for that lovely comment. Ivan says, I always thought HS2 was a white elephant. Literally. Yeah, at this point, the white elephant is part of the campaign anyway. And he also says it was set up to fail. This is the thing. The whole point of this, just like all the other Ponzi schemes, that the government take charge. If one individual or group of people come up with a Ponzi scheme, government will come out and the judiciary come after you saying that person is stealing people's money. Embezzlement, corruption, right? When the government takes over the same Ponzi scheme or scam, it becomes legal. It is now allowed to happen. They basically say, we have this new project. What happens is, they will take your money, billions of money. All the people who are going to take advantage, they are benefiting from it. All the people who are part of the project, different companies, different CEOs of all the others who invest in it, they take the money. They love it. And then they just go and disappear. And then they say, oops, this failed. Meanwhile, the countryside is being destroyed, houses are being destroyed, and obviously the whistleblowers, a little bit silenced. Victor Red says, stop supporting people who hate you. And Sheila says, What would happen if we all refused to pay the ever-increasing amounts of tax which don't benefit from? Obviously, if everybody did it, or even 50% of the country, then yeah, the whole government will collapse. But it's never easy to do these things. Even in countries who have done general strikes, it takes a while to actually do civil disobedience and things like that. Now, let's go to some non-super chats while we're here as well. We have April Millard saying, the mainstream media, start doing your job and stop selling out the British people, because if this is true, you did not do your job. You did sell out the British people. Well, it is true. And let's not forget, without accusing individual newspapers or TV channels or people who are part of them, let's not forget, these are the same exact type of people who are also benefiting from these sort of things. And at best, they're not gonna expose this because they're in the same bed with the same politicians and the vested interests. You got multinational globalists who are coming into the country with no connections to the UK, for example, and they're doing the same thing to other countries, by the way, to Canada, the US, and these people don't care. They will come out, make arrangements and relationships with the other people, the lobbyists, the MPs, stupid idiots, and then just take the money and just disappear. They don't have to stay. Anyway, Miyamuk says, come on peeps, they are having us on, aren't they? Just a little bit, yeah. I just realized for the interview we had to change the microphone. I'm going to change it back to normal, so the volume should be better now. 1 second, 3, 2. There we go. Okay, now I think we're back to normal now. The sound quality should be. Fortunately, when we're doing the interviews, I have to do echo cancellation. Otherwise, both microphones will be brrr. So hopefully the sound quality should be much better. Let me know in the live chat if the sound quality has now improved. Carl says a national strike is in order, I think. But again, organizing a national strike, good luck with that, because you need millions and millions of people. And if you could get millions of people to strike, then why can't we get millions of people to vote for a party that could change the uniparty system? Louise says the government is going to reorganize the boundaries to ensure we can never get Labour out. Yeah, I mean, the boundary changes will, I mean, we just had the recent one in terms of the constituencies, but they're going to have them again. So it doesn't really change much in terms of the overall structure, because it's either going to be Team Blue or Team Red, Tory or Labour. But again, this was never supposed to be like this. The system on paper was always fine. It's the people inside the system that ruined it. So, for example, the first past the post system and parliamentary democracy was supposed to work if everybody played the game the right way. We were never supposed to have centralized political parties with a political headquarters, a party headquarters, and one party leader leading a party like a president. We were supposed to have parties, which was basically a group of people who believe in a set of values, and they will have a logo, so you'll be like, oh, so that's the guy believes in the same thing as the other guy who had the same logo. But each party was local. You vote for your local candidate and local party, not the national side. By nationalizing it, centralizing all the powers, they've also managed to bring in all the lobby, all the big money, and you have no say. Your local candidate has no say. Doesn't really matter who wins, because you won't have a say. Right. Anyway, this was, I think it was an important live update to do. A lot of people have been scared to even talk about this because this leads to other scandals, which again, that's a whole different issue as well, because when the money gets into it, big issues come out. Steve says, thank you for all that you do. Major respect and admiration for all of your work. Maybe America will be a better place to live for you, after all. God bless you, brother. Happy holidays, Steve Kramer. Thank you very much, Steve. There's a few... Vic says the UK needs a Second Amendment right to bear arms. That just brings in a lot of murder against the politicians. It's probably not a good idea. In principle, obviously, I'm a supporter of the right to bear arms. It's just the culture in this country, it's going to be very difficult to sell it. Governments owned by the elites. They waste the civilians' money, they steal portion of it, and then civilians stuck with nothing. While the rich get richer and corruption celebrates. Yes, another vortex Siko from Israel. Thank you very much for that comment. And Mark says, where is Nigel in all this? Where is the king in all this? Well, the king can't get involved with the policies. I'm sorry, we need accountability right now. This is ridiculous. This is the job of our parliament, the people we elect to do that. They're just not doing it because we don't vote for local candidates. That's the issue. Maybe like 5 of us do that. Every single person, 90% of people, they vote based on parties rather than the actual local candidates. You would vote because you like the Tories or Reform UK or UKIP or Labour. You don't vote, you don't actually check your local candidates. No, not many people. There are a few people who do it, but not many people. Just because somebody is wearing the same rosette as the political party you like does not mean they will do a good job in Parliament. But again, then you won't have many options. It's a lose-lose. It's a very difficult situation right now. It is ridiculous, as Mark Shepard says. Robin says, like, subscribe, enjoy the truth. Will set us free. Thank you, Robin. MJ says, where are all the people with money and power who actually share our values and patriotism? Surely we have to be our own Musk types. I mean, some argue the people with money behind Reform UK are relatively like that, like Nick Candy or certain people, but I don't know. We do need better people who have access to money and power. Vinny King says, sound quality is awful. I can still hear you. Vinny, very naughty, very naughty. Love that. Louis says, everyone and their mum is packing here in the country. I do feel sorry for a lot of people who won't be able to afford heating this winter, and there's not much we can do. This whole thing as a country. There's so many people out there, millions, over 10 million pensioners are going to be in a lot of trouble this winter. As a US citizen, you are welcome here, man. What about all the others? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I hope this was informative. I hope this was as important for a lot of people who probably didn't really focus much about this issue and all the other scandals and cover-ups. That's successive government. That's why they say British state rather than just government. It goes to a whole new level. You open that door to chaos, you will find out more. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Habib, former MVP and Brexiteer, a very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Well, great to see you, Jeremy. You're so kind. It's always, obviously, I love being praised. So it's wonderful to be on and hear that. Thank you.
No, mate, so many people will come on and they will say you speak sense. I don't really know where to start. Actually, I do know where to start. And I just said this to Tom Tuganak, who's a good man. And his hands went out like that. Every time we talk about migration and we talk about finding a politician with the balls, excuse my French, even if it's a woman, because Thatcher had bigger balls than anybody, to actually say, I'm going to set up a processing system, I'm going to turn the boats around, I'm going to put them, whatever it is, right? We don't have that. We have all hand wringing in the, but everybody says that even if we were in any way responsible and made those decisions, the ECHR, the European Court of Human Rights, set up 70 years ago, which everybody knows is completely not fit for purpose, they would quash us as they did with Rwanda. Take a breath, Ben Habib, and take a breath, United Kingdom, because I never thought I'd wake up to this news. Germany, for God's sake, Germany admits today that it could quit the ECHR to get a grip on migration. And doesn't that just show you, Ben Habib, whilst Europe, even Germany, goes to the right, we've got a socialist bloody government. Unbelievable.
It is. I mean, what's particularly interesting, of course, is that the ECHR was set up in part because of Germany.
Yeah.
It was to keep Germans and the French under control. That's, the post-World War II thing. And obviously Germany, the French and the Germans have had a go at each other for centuries. I suppose we have too. But the Germans, had a particularly bad showing between 1939 and 1945, and Europe thought they needed to be held in check. But even Germany has matured to the point where it recognises the ECHR isn't fit for purpose. And the other thing Germany's discovered, much to my great pleasure and relief, and I'm sure to anyone who is of our disposition, is borders. They're also now unilaterally imposing their own borders, which they're not actually allowed to do as members of the Schengen zone in the European Union. They're meant to have open borders, but they're enforcing them, and they're arresting people, and they're turning people back. And that has caused consternation in its neighbouring countries, and they are saying, well, actually, we're going to start imposing our borders. And a domino effect of waking up to the risk of illegal migration is taking place across Europe. And long may that last, that domino effect.
Do you agree with me? I was saying to Tom Tugendhat, I don't, maybe it's because of my age, but I don't understand why there isn't a conviction politician who stands up in front of the British people, and a lot of people will believe it's Nigel Farage, I hope it is, it might not be, and says, look, right, here's my plan. This isn't just wishy-washy, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to cost, this is who it's going to upset, there'll be days when you don't like it, but that's what we're going to do, that's what I'm going to try to do, and I'm not going to be deterred from that. I don't see that. I see too many politicians, Ben, somebody said to me the other day, they go to focus groups before they work out what the hell to say to anybody, how to respond. I don't feel there's anything from the heart. People will say to me, but Jez, it's not that simple. No, it's not. But if you're in for it, at least try and make a difference. Do you know what I mean by that? I think people are frustrated, really frustrated.
I do, and I don't like the response which opens with, it's not that simple. Actually, most things in life are quite straightforward. It requires the will to do it. And as far as enforcing our borders are concerned, we don't need the ECHR. We don't need to be in the European Convention.
But I mean, here you are suddenly in the middle of the centre of all this controversy about BBC banning you. You could have a #1 for Christmas. It could be great.
Yeah, well, I didn't expect any of this whatsoever, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I put it together. I thought it was a good idea. I thought I might be able to raise a bit of money for charity with it if enough, a few tens of thousands of people like it maybe. And then once it kind of got hold online on social media, on Twitter and on Facebook, it just kind of took off a life of its own, way beyond anything I ever thought would happen, to be honest.
And so, I mean, how many downloads is it at the moment, if you know?
I mean, it's almost impossible for me to tell at this point. It's just so it's had over 10 million views across all platforms. It's had tens of thousands of downloads on the music platforms, streams as well, possibly hundreds of thousands on the music platforms. Yeah, it's quite hard to keep track of at this point.
And I mean, have you done anything like this before? I mean, I don't know enough about your history really, but I mean, have you ever done anything like this, and was it hard finding a place to record it and put it out there?
No, I've never done anything like this at all, Mike. And to be honest, the whole thing, I basically made it from my computer at home. I hired a guy to do the vocals. He had his own booth. He did that. He sent them to me. I hired a second guy to do the video, and then I did all the work in between, putting it together and producing the track. Just at home, basically. So it was all just done essentially in my bedroom.
And did you have to get permission from anybody for the music?
So I spent a long time trying to figure out how all that worked, and I'm still not sure, to be honest. I found a backing track which I did pay for from someone who'd done their own, obviously, newer version, new instrumental to the track. As for the actual original composition that's owned by Mud, I wasn't quite sure about that. From what I read, doing a parody should be fair use, and I thought if I'm doing it all for charity, I'm not trying to make any money personally, then hopefully they wouldn't mind.
Well, let's hope not. And if anybody starts hassling you for it, you should get in touch with us, and we'll see what we can do, because you don't want that.
Thank you.
What about the charitable monies that you might make? Do you have any idea yet how much you've raised?
Yeah, so we have a Just Giving fundraiser that's raised over £33,000 or close to now. Which is unbelievable. My initial target was 5,000, and then I changed that to 50,000. So hopefully we can get to that big target now. As for the streams and the sales and all that kind of stuff, I've got absolutely no idea. I don't know how much of a cut Amazon, Apple, and all those people take. I don't know if I have to pay tax on it. I've not really looked into any of that yet, Mike. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. But after Christmas,
Quite
I'll get all
phenomenal.
that sorted out.
Has it given you any thoughts about whether you need to have a change of career now?
Well, this is what a lot of people say. I think I only did this because I thought it was actually a good idea in the first instance. You know, I wasn't trying to force a song. I wasn't trying to do it on purpose to lampoon the government or raise money. I just had the idea first, and then everything else came after. So if I can come up with another good idea, who knows, maybe. Or if they don't reverse the winter fuel allowance cut, maybe next year we'll re-release it. We'll see what happens.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of material you could get stuck into in the early part of next year. Brilliant.
Yeah,
well, listen, well done, Chris, and a really fantastic piece of British ingenuity, I would say. So congratulations. Thank you very much indeed. Chris, of course, there, having organised the whole situation. It's very funny, isn't it, though? Because they say with streaming and all of that, unless you're mega star, unless you're like Coldplay or U2 or somebody, you don't make an awful lot of money from streaming.
No, I was checking earlier. You can download it as a ringtone this for 79p.
Right.
So that's that could be quite profitable for them. But all eyes on this, so it's fascinating. They reckon Wham #1, possibly, Mariah Carey, Brenda Lee, but this record could be the big surprise, and we'll find out after 4 o'clock this afternoon.
And the BBC keeps saying, oh, we haven't banned it, but they're just not playing it, right?
Yeah, it was a really, what did they say? They just said, we defend our stance. Decisions are made with relevant audiences and context in mind, which means what?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything,
That's
does it?
typical BBC sort of fudge, isn't it?
It would appear so.
Oh, yeah, no, we're absolutely not banning it, but it just doesn't happen to have ever been played. Well, it sounds like you banned it then.
It's just bizarre, like you say, nothing offensive about the record. It's funny, actually, I think it's kind of genius.
It is.
I think it's really, it's a nod into the right direction.
And the video they've made in sort of black and white is quite kind of stark. It makes you sit up and take notice. So Chris has done a great thing, and I think long may it continue. But we shall see. Christmas #1, maybe only a few days away. What else is going on over Christmas? I think Paul McCartney, I was just saying, big show. Christian went last night. Fantastic, apparently. He brought on Ringo Starr.
Apparently that moment was just incredible. Ringo Starr came on and did, obviously Sgt. Pepper's, and the whole audience. There was a gasp in London's O2 last night. I think it's the closest that any of us will get to see the Beatles now.
Absolutely.
And a really great moment. Sir Paul McCartney in his early 80s, he went on and he did a 3-hour plus show. Ronnie Wood joined him on stage last night, so there were a lot of gutsy people who didn't get a ticket last night.
I got invited and I couldn't go.
No way.
Yeah, I was getting a lot of brickbats from certain people for that, but there we are.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Steve, good to see you. Have a great Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Hopefully I'll see you before Christmas if all goes well.
Lovely.
For a little bit of a winter cheer, Christmas cheer of one kind or another. We've got more Christmas cheer coming your way between now and 10 o'clock, of course. Coming up, we're going to speak to Rupert Bell, who's been out and about with the Royals, would you not believe. This is Talk.
Monetize the fuck out of it.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:38. It's almost all over, but of course there's plenty coming here over the course of the next few days before Christmas here at Talk, the home of common sense. Plank of the week, of course, coming out. There's a Christmas special coming out. There's a plank of the year coming out. There's Clash of the Titans all over the place. There's grumpy old men all over the place as well. Lots and lots for you to see over the course of the next few days. And then, as I say, after the Christmas period is over, we'll be back in this very seat a week on Monday. Let's have another gaff, though, because it's Gaff Friday. I don't want to say, there must be another word, Gaff-prone Friday? I don't know. Anyway, here we are, I am, with James, Max and Ian Collins. Not trying to pronounce, but me trying to tell them how to pronounce Boyakasha.
TVing sayings that we all knew and loved, they're all dying out, apparently. Yeah. Boyakasha, obviously.
Boyakasha! Boyakasha!
Yes.
I think is how you say it.
I thought it was Boyakasha.
Yeah, Kasha. No, never heard it say that before.
All right.
A third of Gen Z is born between 1997 and 2012 due to Blanket Ali G's Boyakasha. Boyakasha! Who for some reason James Max seems to think is pronounced Boyakasha. I'm like, sorry. He was convinced it was true.
According to a survey even, around a quarter do not recognise. You see, there would be a catchphrase in there, wouldn't there? A third of Gen Zers drew a blank at Ali G's Boyakasha.
Boyakasha! And there you go. It is Boyakasha, not Boyakasha. It just isn't that. I'm sorry. I'm not having it. Let's talk to Rupert Bell. He is, of course, Talk's royal correspondent and man about town. Rupert, a very, very, very festive good morning to you and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you and a festive good morning to you.
Yes. Now, I've seen pictures of you with Princess Anne. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm at the London International Horse Show this week, which is taking place at Excel, and on Wednesday night, I have a job as, a role as chairman of the British Equestrian Media Association.
Yes.
And as a result, we've been working on this for some time, but was able to present to the Princess Anne a Lifetime Achievement Award. We have a lunch every at the start of this particular week where we celebrate the achievement of our equestrian athletes, and many have done very well this year with 5 Olympic medals. But we honoured the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, with our Lifetime Achievement Award. She's a much decorated rider. She's a former Olympian. She won the European Championships when she was 21, but she's also been a very effective administrator for the sport of equestrianism. She was FEI president for 8 years. She's worked on the Olympics for the IOC. She's worked for the British Olympic Association, very much promoting equestrian sport, and it was a real privilege to be able to honour her in such a way. And I tell you what, she was very honoured to receive it, because she's normally the one giving fabulous way, and many people say when they talk to her that she manages to really give the impression that she's totally engaged with whoever she's talking to, and I can definitely now vouch for that, because and that was a great. We did it in front of a sellout crowd at the Excel on Wednesday night, and the crowd were also able to appreciate what she's done for equestrian sport over the years.
Yeah, a friend of mine got an honour from her. His MBE was presented to him by Princess Anne, and he was gobsmacked by some of the questions that she came up with him, knowing so much about him. He was, I couldn't quite believe it. He was already sort of stunned to be in the same room in the first place, and then when she suddenly went, so what bands are we looking at this year? And so, they started talking to him about music. He was just sort of like, he didn't know really what to do, but she's quite remarkable apparently. Let's talk a bit about the other royals though, because of course there was a big lunch yesterday, the Christmas lunch, which Prince Andrew was told not to go to, we're told by his former wife Ferry, but also it turns out William and Kate didn't go either.
Yeah, well, and that was expected, because their school holidays have begun for their children, and they've gone up to Norfolk already. So I don't think we can read too much into that, and it's probably they wanted to get up they will have Christmas with the rest of the family once they will arrive at Sandringham. There's going to be a huge lunch, but of course, as you say, there is no Andrew, no Sarah, and I don't think Andrew wasn't at the lunch yesterday, and obviously he's going to be holed up in Windsor for the Christmas period. So again, just reflecting that he has not helped his cause by his friends that he's been associating with over the years, and obviously this latest scandal that is affecting him with his relationship with this Chinese, alleged Chinese spy, is obviously causing him more problems as he tries to navigate his future, which is, as in recent years, of course, has been beset with so many different problems.
Exactly right. And a nice picture on the front page of The Sun today, after their worst year ever, the Christmas card from Wills, Kate and the kids. Lovely picture.
Yeah, I'm sort of taken at the time when they produced the video that came out on their summer holidays. So a sort of happy family picture, because obviously it's a family, and like so many families, the length and breadth of this country, whose member will be suffering from cancer, it will have been a very difficult year. So they are no different to so many families. And with the news, the more positive news about the Princess and obviously hopefully they're going to be able to enjoy Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely right. And the King's cancer treatment is going to continue into the new year, we're told. Oh, I think we've lost Rupert. Rupert, sorry about that. We'll come back to you if we can. But yeah, that's the other story that we were going to do on the Royals this morning. That King Charles's cancer treatment is supposedly going to be carrying on into the new year, which I don't think anyone would be particularly surprised about. But obviously, we wish him well in all of those endeavours. Coming up, of course, we've got Plank of the Week, and it's a Christmas special. Have a look at this. Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week, the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people because we'll do all the judging for you. Let's just have a look at how Humphrey Useless is now spending his time.
There goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar. Hello, and unfortunately, it catches on his Johnson.
If he's Plank of the Week, he's got a sizable plank.
That's a whole different show.
And when you see that this week, it has... And when you see that this week, it has a little bit of tinsel added in, and a little bit of a special background as well. Also not arranged by the head of graphics. But don't worry, it looks very good. It looks very good indeed. We'll play something from Clash of the Titans coming up in a minute as well. How about this from Alan, who very kindly says this. Mike, I'm not being sycophantic, but you have been an absolute godsend since moving into the morning slot. You have entertained, made us chuckle at 6 a.m. and delivered news with warts and all. Thanks for being so resilient and for the consistency doing an early morning role. Wishing you a fantastic Christmas and a superb new year. I really appreciate that. It's very kind. Thank you so much for all of you who have been listening and watching, and the growing band of people who are now joining Morning Glory every single day from 6 until 10. Brad in Cambridge says, morning, Mike. I can remember the BBC band My Ding-a-Ling by Chuck Berry way back in the day. Yes, I remember that as well. One here from Abby. Mike, love the show. Sat here sniggering away with my colleague Liz every morning, saving the nation, working at the National Harms Service. Things can only get better in 2025. Oh, hang on. Love and all the best, Abby, an undisclosed hospital. Well, it's good to know that you're listening, and obviously, as I always say, there are plenty of good people in the NHS. It's just the bleeding management that are crap. It's true. 9:47, more coming up after this.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:51. Alex Phillips will be here very shortly to tell us what's coming up on her show after 10. Greg from Bushy says we have to tell our children and grandchildren that they will receive fewer Christmas presents this year, as Santa has had to lay off several of his helpers because of the rising cost of his employer's national insurance charge, thanks to Rachel Thieves. And his remaining helpers can't keep up with the workload. Absolutely right. And Paul in Portsmouth, Bournemouth rather, says, Merry Christmas, Mike, and Benedict as well. Please keep up the great work in 2025. Margaret, currently in Tunisia, says, I just want to wish you, Benedict Spence, all Talk presenters, contributors, all the people that help put the shows together a very happy Christmas. Thank you all for keeping me sane amongst the political turmoil and complete incompetence that we have had and are continuing to endure. And Clayton in Dartford says, you ask what Labour are delivering, the answer is, of course, complete misery. Merry Christmas. Yeah, very true. Now, one of the things that we talked about this week was how on earth we managed to get some kind of Christmas spirit into the show. As you might remember at the beginning of the week, we were troubled by the fact that we were given what can only be described as a very, very poor rendition of something Christmassy, which was basically the normal backdrop with a bit of snow falling on it. And so we ended up with what we've got today. As you can see, it looks a lot better, doesn't it? This is how it happened, and this is how it unfolded with the head of graphics. I'm afraid the head of graphics hasn't come up with anything better than what I've got behind me. He still hasn't done anything. I don't know what's going on. I shall be making another entreaty to him earlier on this morning to say, can you not give us something? I was doing Plank of the Week this week, and we did a Christmas special, and the background was amazing, beautiful. You know, lots of holly, lots of, mistletoe, lots of baubles. This is really Christmassy. This is crap. I'm sorry. If it was down to me, I'd fire him. I'm sorry about the background. I mean, it's not very Christmassy. It's the best we can do, apparently. This is about as imaginative as the head of graphics gets.
Mm-hmm. Well, nevertheless, at least it's wintry, if not that Christmas.
Wintry, yes. Maybe that's the problem. There's no reference to Christmas at all.
No, not
it's like you might as well be on the BBC. We've decided to give up on the head of graphics because he's basically useless, hasn't done what he was asked to do, hasn't fulfilled his mandate in any way, shape or form. So we decided to do our own Christmas backdrop, and there's only one man that can introduce it, and here he is.
3, 2, 1.
Yay! There we go. Isn't that great? Now, you might not be able to see it depending on the angle that you're looking at it for, but not only have we now got snow, we've also got some baubles, we've got some wreaths going on in the background there. It looks a lot more Christmassy,
much more festive.
I think that's much better. So well done, guys. Thank you very much indeed. We have, by the way, decided to fire the graphics chief. The head of graphics, you might have heard yesterday, was absent without leave. Nobody knows where he is. He's supposed to have fixed the background for this show. We decided to do it ourselves. We've got a bit of snow now, but not only that, we've now also got some sort of, some pine, some joyous baubles and some little green and red colours. It just looks an awful lot better. There you go, look at that. Doesn't that look a lot better? I mean, I'm telling you, this is what we should be looking at. That now is a proper Christmas background. So thank you very much. No thanks to the head of graphics, who's no longer the head of graphics. He's been removed from that job. We'll put him in charge of something else, maybe the toilets. As if you weren't feeling festive enough, because we've told you earlier about the trouble we've had with the head of graphics here at Talk, the man that hasn't managed to actually produce anything that looks in any way festive whatsoever. We've managed to find something else, nothing to do with him, which we're going to put forward now as our final offering for the festive season, because we're literally 2 days away from disappearing off for Christmas, right? Let's have a countdown from the man that knows how to light Christmas trees.
3, 2, 1. Yay!
Look at that. Now you're talking. Now you've got a proper Christmas season. It appears to be snowing indoors. That's all right. We don't mind that.
I don't know how it is you're getting it to snow inside over there. I can't get to do that here.
No, I can't manage. I can't explain that. We've had a lot of problems.
Why doesn't it settle on your shoulders?
Peter Hitchens, who else could you have as the Grinch that stole Christmas? He turns up at the end there. But look at this, now we've got a proper Christmas celebration going on, and we are literally minutes away from departing from these shores to go and head away to go and do a few days off of R&R. Very well reserved. My daughter's here, my other kids are around as well. All things are going on which are good, and we're going to be saying, I've got another party to go to tonight, which I'm going to go home and have a sleep for in preparation, which will be good. A couple of more tweets and texts for you. Good morning, Mike, and happy Christmas from the Philippines, says Mike. I'm exiled here due to the lack of housing, which Angela Rayner says doesn't exist. I shall be on endless replays of Plank of the Week to get me through to New Year without going gaga. Salamat to you and the team at Talk. And one from Sean in Warwickshire says, it was God Save the Queen that was banned in the Jubilee year, 1977. Rod Stewart went to #1, but it should have been the Sex Pistols, which outsold Rod Stewart. Yeah, that must have been what it was. Have a brilliant Christmas, says Michelle. Thank you for keeping us company in the mornings and for the laughs. It does certainly help, and I think so. I mean, you got to laugh, really. I mean, we just sort of discovered it by accident, that things are going so badly for this government that the only thing you can really do is laugh. Mike from North Staff says, the worst Prime Minister in living history says he is the party of change. I believe he needs to change Rachel Reeves' title to Chancellor instead of Chancellor. It would be far more accurate. Shall we have a look at Keir Starmer saying how happy he was to introduce Rachel Reeves as the first woman Chancellor in history? Have a look.
It will also be the first budget delivered by a woman ever. That is a moment of pride. When Rachel Reeves stands up, she will be making history. And I can tell you, young women and girls across the country will be watching, they will look up, and they will notice.
I'll tell you what we're going to do now. I mean, after Starmer, you don't know what else to do, but since it's Christmas, why don't we play this great Christmas song that we got from Matt just the other day.
It's beginning to fall apart for Starmer. Everywhere you stroll, take a look in at number 10. It's chaos once again, as they're sucked in through their imaginary black hole.
We were left a £22 million black hole.
For Starmer, the toolmaker's son who's such a bore. And the most likely thing you'll see is the policeman that will be at your own front door.
There we are. Matt, thank you very much indeed. It's longer than that. We might play it again over the course of the next few days. Alex Phillips is here. Let's get the final voice note montage for Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Mike, to you and all the team.
Morning, Mike. Just wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas, mate, to you and your family and all your co-producers and everybody at Talk.
Morning, Mike. Merry Christmas to you.
James from Blackburn. Just want to wish you a Merry Christmas and thank you for this year because you keep me sane, you keep loads of us sane.
Just to say thank you to all of you at your station and for helping us through.
Hi, Mike. Mike from Lancashire. Spoke to you for a few times just to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas and all your team.
A very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Isn't it great? You feel all warm and fuzzy, doesn't it? Doesn't it?
What?
You. Yeah.
Me? Do I make you feel warm and fuzzy?
No, they're listening to the messages because you don't hear them.
No.
Oh, you didn't hear them?
Not me, Petition, yeah.
These are all just lovely messages from people saying Merry Christmas.
Oh.
That'll be a gap for the start of the next year.
Did you commission that?
No, I didn't have to.
Did you not?
No.
Oh, did you? Oh, right.
No, I didn't have to.
So
People
if
love
I
what we
drop
do.
the hint that my birthday's on Boxing Day, which it is,
Is
you
it?
can check on Wikipedia.
Okay.
My birthday's Boxing
Is
Day.
it?
Do you reckon people might?
They might wish you happy birthday for
So
Boxing
why?
Day.
Are you away next week?
Yeah, I'm away next week. I'm off all week, and we've got to go because we're out of time. But listen, have a wonderful Christmas. Great to see you last night. Good to see you. That's not meant to be.
As you guys know, over the last few months with this new socialist government, a lot of things are coming out. Whether decisions made by these guys, the Labour Party, or previous governments, successive governments, a lot of scandals are being exposed. Some of them are not sexy enough for the media. Some of them are not sexy enough to discuss, apparently, even by MPs. But they are important. They are ruining our country. They are stealing your money. This story is about billions and billions of pounds being stolen. Of course, a lot of people are profiting from this. A lot of corporations, a lot of lobbyists, and those who have disappeared. Whistleblowers are being shut down and being completely oppressed. We have a situation where the media are covering up on behalf of the government. And in this video, we will be exposing this. This Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, yes, he has inherited some of the problems from the previous governments, especially the few Conservative governments that we've had over the last decade or so. But they are all in it together. He didn't oppose any of this. For example, let's talk about the project that was supposed to be a nice surprise, a nice present to this kingdom, because they sold it to us as a nice thing. Then it all went down. HS2, right? Let's talk about this one now. The high-speed rail 2. They said, we're going to build new trains, new train lines. They're going to go fast. You're going to save about 5 minutes, 20 minutes. Ooh. And then they said, we're going to help the north of England. George Osborne was proud of it. Boris Johnson, all of them. Keir Starmer now. What did they do? It was all based on lies. Money has been taken from your pockets. Billions. We're now looking at over £100 billion. This socialist government are talking about a £20 billion black hole left by Rishi Sunak, right? They are saying they don't have enough money to pay our pensioners. They don't have enough money to make sure the elderly are not freezing to death this winter. We don't have enough money to help our veterans. We don't have enough money for anything. We have money for illegal migrants, and we have money for the corporations who want to steal your money. Over £100 billion. This is being stolen and being wasted, and they're covering it up. This morning, in the House of Commons, in Parliament, we had parliamentarians getting together to scrutinise HS2. What happened with HS2, by the way? They said it's only going to cost a few £1 billion. It's going to be finished quickly. It's going to help people to move around the north. They cancelled the northern side. They basically, the whole project became about helping the rich, because the tickets, if it even gets completed, they are now doing premium tickets, VIP tickets, because they're not going to have cheap, affordable tickets, because they're an expensive line. They are doing that to help the economy in London. Corporations in London are waiting for this. It's not going to happen. They continue to say, well, we don't have money for this, we don't have money for that. The recent estimate that came out says 66 million pounds just disappearing. That's a lot of money. It's not even that. It's 100 billion plus. They are denying it. They are misleading Parliament. They're lying to you directly. This is what they're doing to your country. They're destroying the countryside. They're destroying people's homes. The compensations are not happening. Whistleblowers are being told to shut up. The media are not covering it. And now we are going to be talking about this. In this live stream, I sat down with Michael Gross. He was one of the largest claimants in terms of claimants for the compensation in history, in British history. He's a landowner in Euston. For those who are familiar with this project, Euston, London, big debate around whether to actually have the high-speed rail 2 project there or not. He wasn't compensated properly. It was lied to. Many others as well, and he has a platform compared to many others whose homes have been destroyed, and everybody else. I'm going to talk to Michael. I sat down with him. Just be patient with this. Just listen to him, because it's very important to find out what's going on in your country. These are the stories that the media doesn't think it's sexy enough for you to know about. When they tell you about the £20 billion black hole, we can show you a proper black hole. Let's go and see. And Rachel Reeves, Keir Starmer, every single one of them, they're lying to you. And the problem is also the state, the faceless bureaucrats, permanent secretaries of these departments, including the Transport Department. Let's go to Michael Gross. Right, we're now joined by Michael Gross, who is, obviously, as I said, one of the largest CPO claimants, the compulsory purchase order complainants that we've had in British history, I believe. Welcome to the show, Michael. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yes, I was, but I settled the case.
Oh, yes. Yes. It's a bit of a mess, the whole scandal in general, considering that the media regularly, every now and then, talk about HS2 once a year or something like that. Today, obviously, we had a big session in Parliament, and of course, the civil servants would get involved, MPs would get involved, people would expect answers. So let's just go through some of the issues. Obviously, we're going to talk about your own personal thing that you've been dealing with, but also your perspective on what happened this morning, because they don't seem to be quite clear and transparent with people in terms of the cost, right?
Look, I think it's very important to understand that HS2 is the biggest Ponzi scheme in British history. They never should have embarked on it because they never had this skill base even to understand how much it would cost, let alone to achieve it. And whereas that they should have done is gone for a competitive tender in the 8 countries that had an existing system, they decided to do it themselves. Now, even if you assume that that was pure stupidity, within a year they knew they were in deep trouble, and they started the process of covering up in order to get the funding from Parliament.
But that's the thing, because I want to talk about, obviously, a lot of people would expect Parliament to be there on behalf of normal people, literally the House of Commons. But the Public Accounts Committee and these guys, and obviously civil servants and the MPs themselves, there's a problem with these committees because they don't seem to be accepting evidence from whistleblowers. They don't seem to accept evidence from landowners, those whose lands and houses and everything else, their areas being destroyed and going to be destroyed. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. The last straightforward and honest chairman of the Public Accounts Committee who's just been appointed the anti-corruption czar was Margaret Hodge, and her last session she called out HS2 as she said she didn't believe their figures. And Meg Hillier took a completely different approach, and she orchestrated the lies that she got from the HS2 directors and the civil servants, notably Dame Bernadette Kelly. And Dame Bernadette Kelly today's public,
she's the permanent secretary for the department.
Civil servant, permanent secretary, admitted that the whole thing was a Horlicks, and admitted that they didn't have the figures that it was going to cost, the time it was going to take. In other words, they kept on talking about a reset, by which I think they means is all right, but we'll ignore the fact that we wasted and stole £60 billion, which torpedoed the economy of the country, and we'll reset. And I, the biggest liar of the lot, am still in charge. Now, yesterday, the Prime Minister, who was also informed at an early date that HS2 was out of control, but didn't reply to the letter, said the country couldn't afford 11 billion to bring the 3 million women's pensions into line. He couldn't afford that, but there doesn't seem to be a limit to what he can afford to spend on HS2.
But that's the thing, what we've had from both parties in government is, even on the Tories, we had the same confusions, because Euston, obviously, which again relates to your case, but just generally speaking, there were, over the last few years, there were conversations, it's going to not happen, it's going to happen. Now they've said it's going to happen anyway, extension, and the different degrees. But the budget was announced. There wasn't really any mentions about the HS2. Even recently, there's not enough mention. Why is it that we're not really getting a revolt from the general public? Is it because the media is not really talking about it properly? Maybe the public don't think it's a priority?
No, I don't think it's that. The media have been silenced. Financial Times, Jill Plymouth told people that her editor had been instructed threatened by the government not to publish anything adverse about HS2. Jill Plymouth knew for years that HS2 was in trouble and there was fraud. Ed Malnick of the Telegraph knew. The BBC, who did do 2 panoramas where you can see the frauds, but they directed the arrows to the outside numbers, not to the bullseye. And the BBC, as ITV and Sky have a lot to answer for, we supplied them with all the details. They would not interview us, they would not publish. Only Panorama dealt with it in part twice. So
and to be fair, not many people watch that show anyway. Not many people watch the BBC.
All I can say is that the Mail, the Telegraph, the Times, and the FT did their best to divert attention from the hard fact that it was a project that should never have started, should never have been run in the way it was useless, couldn't be finished. They've already given up most of it. The cost per mile are 10 times or more than any other similar railway elsewhere in the world. And yet, at the time when the old age pensions are dying of cold, the women pensioners are being shafted, 20,000 plus CPO claimants got shafted by Deloitte's and their planted man, head of property, Michael Eckert. Michael Eckert's kept on saying, I can only pay what's in my budget. Well, the CPO legislation is designed to provide fair and reasonable compensation. Michael Eckert and HS2's budget were merely the phony figures to get royal assent from 2017 onwards.
Well, that's the thing. So you mentioned compensation. What about actual justice and compensation for those who've had their families ruined, their homes and their lives? Do you have any hope for that or not?
Well, I suppose you've got the same hope of the post office. The truth will out eventually. As in the case of most Ponzi schemes, this will collapse because it's eating up more and more money. The estimates they're given are baseless and no substance to them.
But that's sorry, I was going to say, because you did also mention, obviously, you call it a Ponzi scheme, and a lot of people obviously are saying this is a scandal like the post office thing that you mentioned, and also the blood infections and everything else. But some people in the mainstream would say, oh no, you're exaggerating, this isn't as important as those two. But there was a time a few years ago when nobody was talking about the post office thing and the blood infection, that I guess it was the same thing. So you're saying that eventually, when this whole thing blows up, it's also as bad, right?
It takes lunatics like Sabay, I'm sorry, I don't know his first name, but the gentleman who got the program done, or me, or a few others, who are effectively Winston Smithers against Big Brother. This has been such a massive cover-up, massive, going through the government, who were fully embedded in HS2. This idea that they didn't know is the biggest lie of all. That Treasury, Cabinet Office, and of course the DFP were fully embedded in HS2, took part in the cover-ups, took part in everything. And that's the truth. Now, whether the 20,000 CPO victims will put a few £100 together so there's a fighting fund, whether the 3 million women who got built on their pensions by Keir Starmer will put together a fighting fund, whether Meg Hillier and all the other people, Nusrat Ghani, McLaughlin, Grayling, Schatz, whether the rule of law will apply. Certainly under Mark Rowley, the police have declined to investigate, never mind prosecute. They said there are no grounds for investigation. I can't think of bigger grounds on a bigger crime. The same applies to Lisa Ostrovsky, the former head of the Serious Fraud Office. Nobody wanted to know.
Well, they keep talking about the black hole that the Tories left. This is a bigger black hole than that, isn't it? And but you know, this in terms of the people, the cover up and people who took advantage of this. You have the actual politicians. You have the people who are part of the HS2 project. But there's a group of people who are always constant, and that's the civil servants, the top civil servants, obviously. You also mentioned.
And politicians, the Transport Committee members and the chairman, the PAC chairman, the Ethics Committee wouldn't hear anything. I could name you dozens of MPs who just didn't want to know. You see, an MP, his first priority is to grease his way up, as high up the pole of power as he can. He will not challenge the party, he will go with it.
Yeah.
I think I'll tell you a story which highlights how rotten Parliament is. The leading MP against HS2 was the late Dame Cheryl Gillum. She campaigned vigorously. Many years ago, we got to see her. And when I say we, it was my lawyer, my lobbyist, his assistants. There were a lot of people there, and her people. And we obviously don't have as much evidence as we have now. We have a 180-page report from former leading fraud investigator of HMRC. But we had a lot of evidence. And the first thing she said, well, it's pretty terrible what you're saying. I would need to see something in writing. Well, she got it the next day, but didn't react. But that's not a terrible thing. She then said, unprompted, I don't care what you send me, if it embarrasses, I use that word again, embarrasses, let alone harms, my friends, Theresa, i.e. the Prime Minister Theresa May, or Chris, i.e. the Secretary of State for Transport, Grayling, I will not do anything.
What?
And that measures how rotten this is.
It's disgusting. I was going to say about finally, I mean, what is your message to the new Transport Secretary now? Because obviously the ministers keep changing every 10 minutes anyway over the last 10 or 15 years. What's your message to her?
Know nothing about her except she hasn't. I don't believe, like most of the cabinet, she's ever held a wealth-producing job. She certainly doesn't understand this. She's doing what she's told. Grayling, in one of his many admissions, said, I had no power. In other words, all the power was Sir Philip Rutman, who started it, and Grayling and Bernadette Kelly. So she won't know anything about it, and she won't engage with us. We are her predecessor, the lady who kept on claiming her phone had been stolen. She wouldn't engage with us.
Yeah.
Shax's answer to when we provided him with the damning figures, I don't know, 5 years ago, I don't recognise your figures.
Wow. No. It's insanity.
Didn't want to recognise it.
No, of course not. It's okay. Well, the mainstream media refuse to actually focus on the actual problems. Don't worry, we are here on TCTV and other media outlets to keep raising this issue. Thank you so much, Michael, for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
That was Michael Gross, who continues to fight against this state. It's not really just about the government, it's the state, because it's all of them. Parties, Parliament backbench MPs, government ministers, junior ministers, secretaries of state, permanent secretaries of departments, well, in this case we're talking about obviously the Treasury as well as the Transport Department. Whistleblowers have been completely attacked. Those who have had their lives and their families and their homes ruined have been told to shut up. Nothing is getting done. They lied to everybody. I would say holding this shiny present, high-speed rail 2. It's going to help you, apparently. They said the same about mass economic migration. We're going to bring all the foreigners who want to do the jobs that you're not doing. It's going to help the economy. We're going to have the GDP going up massively. That was a lie. There's a massive net cost to mass migration. There's a massive problem when it comes to these nice projects being shown to you In reality, they're stealing your money. Over £100 billion. Even right now, they continue to deny the existence of these reports. They're not giving you guys. They're not even telling us.
Speak in person, that'd be nice. You can use that number to send me a WhatsApp message or indeed leave me a little voice note on WhatsApp. I do love a good voice here. 8722 is the number if you'd like to send me a good old-fashioned text message. Put the word talk before your text. We're on X at Talk TV. Taking a little break now. I'm back just after this.
place to be US ambassador to the US?
What I'm going to say, actually, I think Lord Mandelson is better placed than many others that they could have elected. Well, Farage is a difficult one, seeing as he is the leader of an opposition party, one that is probably going to do quite well in the next couple of years. Mandelson, I know we all dislike him for various different reasons, but he's not an idiot. I'll say that much, and he's quite a pragmatist compared to certainly the latest iteration of the Labour Party.
Give us the SP on this guy, and they'll just say Ramona, and he'll just completely
and blank him anyway. So it's a complete joke because there's only there. The whole globalist Labour alike, it just pathetic. They're scraping the barrel, Alex. They'll soon be fished. They'll fish out, work out what he's up to. He's trying to duck his limitation on the Lammy debacle. That's what it is. He's going to get nowhere because he's a political appointment. He's not a professional diplomat in any sense. And he's got a massive agenda, this guy. And all he has to do is say three things. Jesse Robinson, the Hindu brothers, and that old like Deripaska bloke, whatever, and just go, oh my God, his credibility is completely shattered.
He does seem to have a lot of lines, doesn't he, Lord Mandelson? Tarquin, I think your analysis has been stupendous. Thank you ever so much. I do like the idea, actually, that he's sort of going in there to almost sort of diminish the what do you say? Diminish influence, diminish the fallout, the damage of David Lammy. Right, let's speak now to Neil, who's in Buckinghamshire. Hi, Neil.
Hi, how you doing? All right?
Yeah, all right. Bit tired, I'm going to be honest with you. But, you know, we're going to get through it together, aren't we?
Exactly. The Lord Mandelson thing, I mean, the bigger point is what's Starmer playing at? Because the people he's appointing, like the Transport Secretary, their criminal record, Rachel Thieves lied on her CV, etc., and all these other people in the front line, it should be him under scrutiny for putting these people in place in the first place. Mandelson's links to Epstein, there's pictures and everything. He used to go to his island frequently.
Well, wow, that's getting many a curveball today. I did not know this. Obviously, we're going to fact-check that. But I mean, it's a controversial appointment. It's definitely bound to get tongues wagging, wasn't it? But, you know, to me, it seems to suggest that Sir Keir Starmer doesn't really have many leadership qualities. I don't think he really likes being Prime Minister. I don't think he really knows what he's doing. I think most of the Cabinet are out of their depth. And so this is one way in which he can actually get a bit of political experience. Do you think that Mandelson's probably going to run the show a little bit and sort of, you know, boss about Starmer?
Who is Mandelson's boss? Tony Blair. He's the one that's going to be pulling the strings, not Mandelson or Keir Starmer. Everything is done through Tony Blair. If you look at it, and he's the big Europhile, that's the issue. Starmer is Blair's puppet.
I mean, do you think it could backfire and actually, as a result, Trump might sort of hardball England and go, right, I'm going to whack a load of tariffs? Well, to be honest, we don't really have any trade deal with them anyway, despite them being our biggest trade partner. But do you think it's going to make matters worse?
No, I think what it'll do, it'll play into Nigel Farage's hands because Donald Trump wants Farage in power. So what will happen is he will say, I'm not dealing with Mandelson, I'll deal with Farage. Farage will get a good deal, and Farage will then be thinking, all the people will be thinking, oh, look, Nigel's done this, Nigel's done that. I think it could actually be, yes, backfire on him big time, but Nigel Farage will win big time.
All right. Good to have your thoughts there, Neil. That was Neil in Buckinghamshire. Thank you ever so much for your calls. If you want to join the conversation and be a bit like Tarquin, be a bit like Neil, and keep a girl company as she sits in the studio all on her lonesome, the number is 03444991000. Standard network rates apply, so you're not paying any more money than you would do if you were calling up your neighbour Bob. But you can just go knock on his door instead. But with me, I'm afraid you can't do that. You've got to pick up the blower to be patched through to the studio, and we're going to be speaking to more of you later. But you can phone at any time, you know. Register your interest. Let us know you want to talk, and we actually call you back. That's how good our service is here. Sending messages as well, 03444991000 is the number on WhatsApp. You can leave me a voice note on there as well. 8722 is the number to text. Remember to put talk before your message. That way, somehow, that combination of 4 letters means that your message will ping the mast on top of Talk Towers, wend its way down the cladding, fire itself into my screen in front of me here in my little, you know, Cape Canaveral setup, and then I can read it out on air, just as I'm going to do now. Andy from Bridgend says, good morning, Alex. I haven't got anything to rant about today. I just wanted to wish you a very happy Christmas. Well, that's nice. Thank you. Happy Christmas to you as well, Andy. Brian says, Alex, we learn as children piggy bank economics that proves you can't grow the piggy bank pot unless you put money in. Rachel from Accounts doesn't realise 95% of our money is held outside our piggy bank by 5% of the population. They're rich. Well, some might say that that's kind of what she's trying to do. take money off what she perceives to be the rich. And if the piggy bank was the treasury rather than the economy... but look, I agree with you, actually. She's rubbish. The Labour government's rubbish. Our economies are rubbish. Francis in Wilton says, Labour are not only taxing us to the hilt and beyond piling on costs, they're adding to net zero subsidies and costs direct to the consumer. So, disposable income is shrinking as council taxes, utility costs and other charges like motoring, insurance, firearms, shooting in Wiltshire is important, Francis says. Spiral out of control. Who knew costs of firearms are spiralling out of control? They're also investing unwisely with too much overseas and net zero spending. So more than a double whammy. Right, going to take a short break now, but when we come back, we're going to be discussing the fact that a High Court in the United Kingdom has actually used a fatwa in their ruling. A fatwa. Yeah, you heard that right. We're discussing that after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Now, last time I checked, we live in the United Kingdom, and largely we are a Judeo-Christian country. In fact, oh my gosh, I've cut my lip. Sorry about this, guys. But apparently, quite incredulously, a British Sharia council was given credibility by the High Court when a judge used one of its fatwas to decide a case. The Islamic Council, founded by hardline preacher Haytham al-Haddad, issued a religious ruling forbidding a health trust from allowing a brain-damaged child to die. Secular campaigners said using fatwas in civil courts undermined liberal democracy. Well, I get a tissue because I'm bleeding like a rugby player right now. Let's speak to Mohammed Amin, who's ex-chairman of the Conservative Muslim Forum. Mohammed, great to have you on. What do you make of this case that a High Court has actually used a fatwa in one of its rulings?
Good morning, Alex. First of all, this is not exactly hot news. This case was 5 years ago in 2019. And this morning, I downloaded the full 70-page High Court judgment. I went through it very quickly, of course, because I was short of time. The word fatwa occurs 8 times in 70 pages of legal opinion or legal decision by the judge. And how much do you know about the facts of the case? I can explain them very briefly. The parents were Muslims. The 4-year-old girl who had a serious brain problem, she'd had a blood vessel, I think, burst in her brain. And the hospital trust that was treating her wanted to switch off life support while the parents wanted her flown to Italy, where a hospital was willing to carry on treating her. And the parents, being Muslims, got a legal opinion from the fatwa council in Europe that as Muslims they couldn't consent to having life support turned off. I mean, there are cases like this crop up quite regularly, whether people are religious or non-religious. And in this case, the parents wanted some kind of authoritative statement about their Islamic religious beliefs. As I said, the word itself was only used 8 times in 70 pages by the judge as he was going through it. And my quick reading is that it played basically no important role in the decision. I think this is a storm in a teacup by this journalist. It's a really poor quality article in the Times.
But should we be alarmed at all that a fatwa could be used in a court in the United Kingdom? Apparently we're sort of the leaders in Europe when it comes to having Sharia courts in this country. Is it right to have a parallel legal system, so to speak, that isn't founded in the laws of this land?
Well, let's first of all go back to what happened in this case. We have some Muslims saying that Islam says X, and it's perfectly reasonable for them to put forward some kind of authoritative statement from the Sharia Council about what Islam says. It's no different from a Roman Catholic getting something written down by a cardinal saying Roman Catholicism says this, or a Jewish person going to a Beth Din and getting the Beth Din to write down Judaism says this.
But in terms of having Sharia councils in this country, which we have quite a number of, is that appropriate? I mean, Fayaz Mughal, who's the founder of Tell Mama, an organisation which protects Muslims from hate crimes, he says Sharia councils are composed mainly of men over the age of 50 who have very little relevance and understanding of modern life. Their interpretations of Islamic law and their desire to keep couples together even when there are serious problems in the relationship do not recognise the safeguarding of women. That's sort of in the context of, say, Sharia divorces. But again, I'll repeat my question. Is it right to have Sharia law in this country, which in many respects isn't the law of our land, or it's not in many respects, it isn't the law of our land, full stop, might contradict the law of our land, so you end up with a justice system that does one thing for one section of the population and something else for the other section. That isn't the same law for everybody.
Well, again, let's look at the facts. We have one law in this country, which is English law made by Parliament and made by judges appointed by the Crown. Quite separately, we have a system of Christian church law administered by Christian courts for very specific Christian issues. We have a system of Jewish law where Jewish people can go to a Beth Din if they got a disagreement between themselves and they want some kind of arbitration. And likewise, we have this Sharia system where Muslims want to get a private ruling, because these are not state-sanctioned courts. These are private arrangements where people of religious belief, if they have an argument within their religion, want an opinion. What's wrong with that?
Well, what's wrong with it is when it's being used inside a court in the United Kingdom. And also, some people might say that some of the rulings are just not appropriate in 21st century Britain. This is Britain. This is the way we do law. This is our, democratic right. We get to vote in Parliament. Well, we get to, vote for people who in Parliament decide the laws of this land. And there probably shouldn't be anything else other than that.
Well, let's take those. You said two separate things. Let's take them one at a time. The one about the High Court using the opinion of the fatwa as part of its decision making. That's no different from it using an opinion from a Jewish religious court, or using an opinion from, say, a Roman Catholic cardinal about what Roman Catholicism says, if that was relevant to a High Court decision. What is wrong with that?
Well, look, what I might say is people being treated differently in the eyes of the law based upon their religion probably shouldn't be the case.
The court is not treating people different based upon their religious beliefs. If somebody's religious views are relevant to a decision, the court is entitled to seek whatever guidance it wants and to take into account whatever information is available about that religion.
OK, let's take the example, let's say, of polygamy as well when it comes to Sharia. It's something that's allowed under Islamic law. People can download an app where they can write a will according to Sharia law, where they get to sort of, decide what their various wives all get. But in the United Kingdom, under our legal system here, if you're married to more than one person, that's considered an illegal offence. That's considered bigamy. Should there be two different types of law in this land?
There is one type of law in this land, which is English law. An English domiciled person cannot engage in more than one marriage without it being a criminal offence. And in cases, sometimes people from this country go to Pakistan, for example, and take a second wife, and actually they find themselves then quite correctly being charged with bigamy in the English courts. So the only situation where English law recognises more than one wife is if somebody is married already overseas in a country which has polygamy and the family moves to the UK, English law will recognise them as still being married, all three of them, for example. But apart from that case, English law says you can only have one wife. I don't see what you're talking about as a problem.
Okay, well, let's go back to the case in hand here, where essentially the advice based upon Sharia law that the court was given, which then affected the judgment of not to enable the Barts Medical Trust to Health Trust to end the life support of the child in question. Were this to be a family in the United Kingdom who, say, didn't have religious beliefs but similarly wanted the same outcome, and then because they didn't have, you know, this is what a church says, this is what a temple says, this is what a synagogue says, this is what a mosque might say, and there was a different outcome to that case, would that be fair?
Well, first of all, these cases crop up quite regularly in the UK. They're very sad cases. They happen regularly. Sometimes the parents are religious. Sometimes the parents are not religious. I haven't gone through all the cases. I have gone through this one. I said I quickly went through all 70 pages. And my view from reading that 70 pages very quickly is that the fatwa played basically no meaningful role in the decision.
Mohammed, thank you ever so much for joining me. And that was Mohammed Amin. And we're going to take a short break now. When I come back, we're going to be getting an update on travel chaos. Apparently today is the day that everyone is getting on the train or hitting the road, because it's only, Christmas on Wednesday, isn't it? So I think people are going to be starting off their journeys from today. If that's you, you may want to stay tuned, because we're going to give you the updates after this.
When it comes to family life, you've got to ask, is it for the security of the nation and in the public interest? Well, surely having someone, as we've just seen, who controls 90% of the UK's heroin market is a threat to the country, a security. You would think. So a guy that simply attacked someone with whatever it was at B&Q, I don't think will even reach, you know, the idea that the court will say, or will even consider it.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. I think I've managed to deal with my split hip. That was a moment, wasn't it? It was like a rugby player coming off the pitch. You know, it's like in winter, cracked hands, cracked lips. Just falling apart, basically, this morning. Let's read some of your messages. Morning, Alex. Wish you a Merry Christmas and hope you have a perfect birthday, says Margaret and Lisa in Birmingham. Do you know, I'm actually going to be presenting all next week, pretty much, apart from Christmas Day and Alex Day, which is the day after Christmas Day. That is Alex Mass. You know, I like getting the messages early, though. It's nice. It's nice to hear. Phil says, farmers make little or no money on milk. Water in the shops is more expensive. Yet a flat white costs twice as much as 2 whole litres of milk. Farmers will dump milk for a week and lose little or nothing. We're all paying too little and it's being driven by supermarkets. Let's see how we do without a brew for a week in support. Look, I'm with you, Phil, all the way up to not having a cup of tea for a week. That is where I have to draw the line. And I do try and do my bit, you know. I always try and get my milk directly from farmers. I spend a lot of time at farmers markets because I'm that kind of gal. I was brought up in lovely Gloucestershire, and so I'm a big believer in helping our farmers. And you're right, the supermarkets really do play price-fixing games at artificially lowering the cost of milk. And so basically for farmers, they don't make any money on it at all. Daniel says, Alex, you are our Cinderella. Happy Christmas. Keep up the good work. Does that mean I suit polishing floors or something? Is that what Cinderella did? I don't know. Pumpkin time, as my dad would say when it's time to go to bed. Brian says, Tim is right. We're all poorer because the rich 5% are sitting on 95% of all of our money. That's not very democratic. Sound like a load of socialists this morning, you guys. Right, let's have a listen to Karen. She wants to talk to us about Labour.
Hi, Alex. Merry Christmas to you. But my husband's just made a really good point, actually. There's the politics of envy, though. They hate the rich. They want to steal from the rich to give to the poor, which is not what they do anyway. They steal from the sort of medium rich people, i.e. the middle class, and give to the poor. But they're all rich themselves. Keir Starmer's worth 7 million quid. Rachel Reeves is probably worth a few million quid. And Ed Miliband's going to make even more millions from this net zero scam. So how have they got the politics of envy? Why do they hate rich people so much? Why don't they just take it out of their own bank accounts and give it to us? They might win some votes.
Well, yeah, they're probably going to struggle with that one. But that's OK. They're just going to cancel the May elections instead. That's their secret plan. Not so secret. Right, let's catch up now on travel, because today is the day that craziness of Christmas when it comes to motorways and trains is kicking off. Let's speak to Ben Clatsworthy, who's travel correspondent at The Times. Now, people are planning to make journeys to go see their loved ones this Christmas. What would your advice be? What's the situation looking like out there?
Yes, good morning, Alex. Today is the big start of the getaway for the Christmas period this year. Disruption expected on the roads today. Lots of traffic, particularly down towards the port of Dover. Also on the big main arterial routes, the M1, the M4, and of course the M25 around London as well. But also this Christmas, a lot of engineering works. Network Rail still say it's the right time of year to do it when fewer passenger numbers travel over the festive period. But big disruption, particularly out of St Pancras on the Midland Main Line, no services up to Luton Airport, which will be experiencing very busy periods, particularly this weekend in the run-up to the Christmas getaway, but also from Boxing Day onwards as people who are lucky enough to be going for some sunshine depart. That'll also impact services down to Gatwick as well from up in Hertfordshire, and Liverpool Street Station in London as well. It's closed from Christmas Day until the beginning of January as well for big engineering works there. That'll affect services up to Stansted Airport.
Now, apparently, data from the RAC has estimated 29.3 million journeys will be made by motorists in the run-up to Christmas Day. Around half of these, 14.3 million, are going to be this weekend alone. Yeah, my understanding is they're actually trying to remove national highways 95% of roadworks on the roads that they manage. So that surely is some good news. That might alleviate things a little bit.
Yes, national highways do this around Easter time at the festive period, basically getting where they can take away roadworks. It's One of the most frustrating things, I'm sure listeners will agree with, when you're driving and you are stuck in a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, and you can't see anyone doing any work whatsoever.
Oh my goodness! I moan about this all the time. The M5 is the bane of my life. Why is that? You go down the M5 and you've got basically a whole, I don't know, miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles of 50 miles per hour, and you can't see anybody doing anything.
Yes, and one of the fact that they acknowledge it now and put up signs that say, you might not be able to see us, but we are still working.
I saw one of those. Work out of sight, it said on one of these big flashing boards. I was like, what work?
And unfortunately, this Christmas, the same issue that we talked about back in the summer continues, which is that National Highways are doing a lot of work where they had smart motorways, the failed scheme of the previous two governments, both Labour and the Conservative Party, set up smart motorways, removing the hard shoulder. They are now putting more emergency refuge areas into these motorways. Huge amounts of disruption up and down the country. It was a huge problem in the summer. It will be a problem again today and over the weekend because of those 50-mile-an-hour limits, some of them up to 20 or 30 miles in places where they are fitting new emergency lay-by areas to make these roads that were never designed to be the way they are safe. So that as well is a big problem, and is the type of place where they can't remove the roadworks at the moment, and you will see a sign saying you might not be able to see us, but we are working.
Oh, it drives me absolutely mad. You know, I drove the length and breadth of France over the summer. I went from all the way from Calais down to the very southeast near the border of Spain. And one thing I notice is when they have roadworks in France, they sort of bring down the speed limit a teeny little amount like this, and they've literally got people sort of digging up the road, just a couple of bollards as the traffic flies by. And I thought, this is nice and refreshing. In Britain, you know, they cut the speed down ridiculously and nothing happens. It goes on forever. It's just so inefficient. Talking about inefficiency, what about train journeys? Because we gave our lovely train drivers quite a big pay rise, didn't we? But my understanding is that isn't going to absolve us of the stress of strikes.
Well, this is one of the big ironies of the new Labour government. They got the train drivers union, they got the ASLEF, who represent the train drivers, they got the RMT into room, they had tea and biscuits together, and Louise Haigh, the former Transport Secretary, fired for being a convicted fraudster that she'd lied about. She got them round and she said, no, don't worry, pay rises all round, no need for any modernisation, and it's backdated to 2022. So the train drivers, who are on about £69,000 a year, got a lovely little pre-Christmas big lump sum into their bank accounts, and strangely enough, now they're being asked, will you do some overtime, will you work on your rest day, which is how the railways have operated for years, and they're saying, no, actually, I'm all right because I've got all that money and I'm going to take my children into London. We're going to go and see the Harry Potter play this year, and they're just not going to work. And unfortunately, there's huge disruption. Great Western Railway, Thames Link as well, also Northern trains are all hugely affected by it. And it's the government's own fault. They took away any need for reforms to try and get old contracts to say that people will work Sundays, particularly into their contracts. On Thameslink, it's a particular problem. They have Sundays in their contract, but their rest days are Thursdays and Saturdays. Big problem there for those drivers, that they just don't have enough because they're saying, well, I don't want to work. Thank you very much for the offer, but I'm not entitled to. If you're offered overtime, I'm offered overtime. It's a voluntary thing. And they're saying, no, I don't want it. And it's squarely the government's fault. And I was speaking to someone yesterday who said that anecdotally they'd heard it. And although it's very difficult it's a human thing, it's that they're not doing anything wrong. But of course, the train companies are struggling, and it makes it for passengers really disruptive. I live on the Thameslink line, and basically every evening you go on the app and look for a train to come home, and it says, oh, sorry, this train's been cancelled due to a shortage of train crew. There is only one member of train crew on the train, and that is the driver.
Exactly, isn't it ridiculous? It's absolutely ridiculous. And yet, a load of them have got these big pay packets, the backdated pay increases, they've got a nice old Christmas bonus. And yet, Avanti West Coast staff are set to go on strike after Christmas. What's that about? Why are they still striking?
Yeah, so their train managers are in a separate dispute. They're represented by the RMT union. They are in a dispute over various terms and conditions. That was always one of those ones where the RMT was saying during the negotiations, yes, but there is still this ongoing dispute at Avanti. Avanti had issues with their drivers. They got around that by paying them the standard overtime fee plus £600 a shift on top of their usual
600 quid a shift? How long's the normal train driver's shift?
It's 8 to 10 hours, so it is a normal working day, but £600 on top of their overtime agreement that they've been paid. Now the train managers, they're in a dispute. They want £300 as overtime extra payment for working on their rest days.
Blimey, I should give up this job and go into the trains business. It's where the money's at.
And you've got a wonderful union that represent you.
I think it'd be quite a nice job, actually. I love going on trains, looking at the great British countryside, all the wonderful parts of the world you might see. Now, on top of all of this, we've now also got planned engineering works, which are going to take place in Liverpool Street, Paddington, St Pancras, and that's happening over Christmas and New Year. So the roads are going to be snarled up. A lot of people might go, OK, let's get on the trains, and guess what? They're going to be in a mess as well.
They are. As I said earlier, Network Rail still insists that it's the right time of year to do the works. This weekend, though, I'm perplexed by the decision on the Midland Main Line. They're fitting a new bridge on just south of St Albans. That's basically closing the line between St Pancras and up towards Luton and the airport, as I mentioned. That's huge work right through until after Christmas. This weekend, it's a really popular weekend for people to go into London. It's last-minute Christmas shopping, it's go out and see a show, and actually that's all been completely messed up by the engineering works. Now, of course, we all recognise that this work does need to happen. I wonder whether starting on the 21st of December is the right time, or whether it's just a little bit earlier, and actually whether if you put disruption into the new year further, that would be better, when actually there are a lot of people who can now work from home and so on. Whereas this weekend, historically, has always been a hugely busy travel weekend, and does seem to me a little bit short-sighted to kick off engineering work that little bit earlier every year.
It's probably because all the engineers refuse to do overtime as well. Ben, thank you ever so much. Ben Clatworthy there, travel correspondent at The Times. Now, let's have a little listen to a voice note. This is Ray.
Alex, when Mandy tells Trump that the Labour government is moving towards the EU and not America, Trump will probably put 20% tariffs on British goods, which is absolutely going to flatten British business, and we're going to go into a nosedive recession. Well done, Labour.
Well done, Labour, indeed. You're right. It does. You're right, you know. Let's see if Nigel Farage can sort of smooth things over a little bit. I want to know where you're from, Ray. Was that a hint of a West Country accent there? Right, what do you think about all of this? Lord Mandelson, of course, has been picked to be the ambassador over in America in order to win over Trump. He is, of course, one of the world's most charming men. Who couldn't he win over? But who would you rather see as the UK ambassador? Should it be a political appointment? Perhaps we should just stick to good old-fashioned appointing diplomats who've sort of been raised under the wings of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Or do you think a political appointment is right and that'd do the trick? Tim Montgomery, of course, starting off this show, clearly no fan of the Labour Party, actually thinks it's a good idea. He says he does know his way around. We also had Tarquin pointing out that maybe this is being done to diminish the worst effects of Lammy, because at least Lord Mandelson will throw his weight around, his political heft around a little bit, and it might sort of, you know, sort of put Lammy in the corner, so to speak. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can talk to me about that. You can talk to me about anything, really. You know, this is the home of conversation here. This is where the nation comes to talk. So pick up the blower, type in 0344 499 1000 and you might be packed through to the studio to keep me company on this Friday. 87222 is the number to text. Remember to write the word talk before your message. That way it wends its way into the studio. You can also send me a WhatsApp message, or you can leave me a cheeky little voice note. 0344 499 1000 is the number for that as well. We're also on X at Talk TV. Hayley has said, happy birthday, Alex. It's not until Boxing Day, people. I know I've told you already. I've given you a sort of run-up, so maybe you might remember just before Boxing Day to send me a birthday message. But thanks anyway. Hayley says, thanks for keeping me sane. I always make sure to tune in for my dose of common sense when you are on. Keep up the good work. Well, I don't know if you're getting much common sense out of me today. That's because half of us in the old sort of right-wing media world were all at a party yesterday, so we're rather jaded. Right, despite all that, I'm going to keep on going for 2 more hours. Your moral support is much appreciated. Stay tuned to Talk. I am back just after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the show. Alex Phillips here with you until 1 o'clock here on Talk, on DAB Plus Radio, on your smart speaker, on YouTube, on your connected device, on our snazzy little application, which you can download onto your phone if you haven't done so already. And the great thing about that app is you can go back through the whole catalogue of shows. You could listen to something from, I don't know, maybe about a year ago, maybe even longer, I don't know. And it'd be like getting in a time capsule. You could just sort of play some lottery game and go, oh, what date shall I pick? I know, let's go to what was going on the 17th of February, back last year. And pretend you're living in the past, because under this government, many of us wish we were. Right, on that note, let us talk to Brendan Chilton, former Labour councillor and former chairman of Labour Leave, because one of the big stories today is the Bank of England itself saying that the budget has caused the economy to stagnate. Who would have thunk it, Brendan?
Well, good morning, Alex. May I be joining the chorus of happy birthday wishes for Boxing Day? And that's not me trying to delay answering your question. The Bank of England have obviously said that the economy is experiencing a lot of uncertainty at the moment, because obviously we've got to see the impact of the budget. The budget was only a few weeks ago. It's far too early to tell. what the consequences of that are on the longer-term economic growth prospects of the country. We also face the prospect early in the new year, potentially of tariffs being imposed on this country by an incoming Trump administration. And so there's a huge amount of uncertainty. We also know that Russia is making advances into Ukraine, which is obviously impacting again on the supply chain of goods. And so while the Bank of England is absolutely right to highlight that at the moment the British economy is going through an unstable period, there are many, many reasons as to why that is the case.
But one of the big reasons, of course, was surely that budget. I mean, we had about, I don't know, 3 months of doom-mongering coming from Sir Keir Starmer in the run-up to the budget. Oh, it's going to be difficult, tough decisions. That's not exactly going to roll out the red carpet for sort of foreign direct investment into the country, is it? And then, of course, you say it's too early to decide what effect the budget is going to have. But the thing is, when you're hearing from, say, even, not that it necessarily directly affects the economy, but hospices, GP surgeries, SMEs saying that, you know, they've done the maths and they're going to have to either not employ new people or potentially even let people go, then I think, you know, that is an immediate effect. They know, they've done their accountancy. This is going to be a problem for them. That's the backbone of Britain. This budget, far from the promise of we're going to go for growth, this budget continues to scare anybody who might want to help see an uptick in the economy.
Well, we did have an enormous amount of foreign direct investment into the UK. I think this year we've been a third behind America and China. Now, returning to the budget itself, of course, no chancellor wants to increase taxes on businesses. No chancellor wants to increase taxes. The ideal world would be a low-tax economy where public spending is managed and where public services are doing well. Unfortunately, we're not in that position. Around the country, all we've got to do is look at our infrastructure, our public services, the amount of money we're spending on defence and other key areas. We just cannot, at the moment, afford where we are. And so the Chancellor has had to take this decision to put taxes up on employers. Now, as someone that is representing businesses, I would prefer that not to be the case. But there are only 1 or 2 taxes you can actually put in place that will raise the amount of revenue you would need to plug the gap in your budget. Those are employers' contributions, they are national insurance, VAT and income tax. Now, in the election, the government promised that it would not put up taxes, income tax, VAT and national insurance. And so the only other tax that was available was the employer's national insurance contribution. Now, while it's not very palatable, the Chancellor did say that this was a one-off budget. If you remember at the end of her statement in the House of Commons, she did say that we would not see a budget like this again. This was very specific to deal with this year's problems. And so hopefully in next year's budget and in the other fiscal events that will be happening, we will see other measures and perhaps more detail on existing government policy to drive growth.
Well, who says that this year's problems aren't going to be next year's problems as well? I mean, it seems to me that a heck of a lot of money, they've come into power, and you can't blame the Labour Party, having been on the opposition benches for 3 terms, so we're going, right, we're back in charge, we're going to do what we want to do, and being kind of excited and getting out the box and going, right, let's do this thing, we're going to give pay rises to the public sector, and the Conservatives have said this could be inflationary, we can't do it right now, wouldn't it be great if everyone could get pay rises? But actually the reality of the situation is we're just not in a financial position to be able to do that. Oh no, said the Labour Party, we're going to do it. And then they turn around and go, yeah, let's go like hell for leather for net zero. Let's get Ed Miliband in charge of, you know, the energy grid and throw 9 billion quid at Great British Energy. Aren't these all sort of vanity projects that you know, if the wind was going the right way, in the right economic conditions, great. You know, do what you like, you're voted into power, put in place the policies you intend to do, but knowing, as you're saying, that we're in a difficult situation following the invasion of Ukraine, following global inflation, which hit everybody, frankly, after COVID, now is not the time to be doing that stuff, especially not the net zero stuff, surely.
Well, I think just dealing with the first point on pay, of course, those were legacy decisions that the previous government kept pushing down the road, and they needed to be made. Many in the public sector haven't had a real increase in pay for many years. Of course, you've got to ask questions about whether that can be afforded. But I think one thing the government does need to do is to attach very significant reform to public services over the course of this Parliament in exchange for those pay rises. And I know particularly the Health Secretary, has said that there's got to be a radical transformation of the NHS. We need to see what that looks like. Now, in terms of net zero, I do think at the moment, while of course we all want to achieve energy security and we all want to achieve an energy system that doesn't harm the planet, we've got to be realistic about where we are in the world. We've got huge problems at the moment, not least, as you said, Alex, from the war in Ukraine. There's huge instability in the Middle East, and what impact that could have on the price of oil could yet unfold in the new year. We've got the issue of potential tariffs coming from America in the new year as well. And so I think a moment to look at where we are, look at where these risks are, and what policies we should and shouldn't be pursuing at pace in respect of net zero must be considered in the new year, particularly, as I say, with the threat of those tariffs coming from America in the new year.
Yeah, now we're going to pick up on that just after this, but guys, got some breaking news for you here. I don't believe it. Guess what's happened? Well, Mohammed Ahmad and Mohammed Ahmad, 20 and 25, they're the guys at Manchester Airport, remember? They have been charged. They've been charged. It's happened. They've finally been charged. They've been charged with actual bodily harm. That is following the disturbance at Manchester Airport involving police officers back in July. That's according to the Crown Prosecution Service. Well, they weren't particularly in a hurry to get that done. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. People have been going on for ages. Why hasn't this happened? Why have these two men not been charged yet? Well, now they have been. But I got to tell you, that means we can't talk about it anymore, because those be the rules. Once people have been charged, that means that journalists have to be very careful what they say, because we don't want to prejudice any forthcoming trial. Although, quite interesting, of course, that when those two, with their spivvy little lawyer, decided to sit down and do a sort of in their little suits and do a nice little interview. It was broadcast live on the BBC and Sky. Of course, that's before the charges, but I wonder how much that's going to prejudice the court case. But there you go, folks. Breaking news here at Talk. Mohammed Ahmad have now been charged with actual bodily harm after a disturbance at Manchester Airport involving police officers in July. It's a Christmas miracle! Right, let's go back to Brendan. And on the subject of Christmas miracles, I think we're going to kind of need one, aren't we? And Starmer's turned around and said he's got no regrets about any of the decisions he's made. Do you think, given his popularity ratings are really sort of like right at the bottom here, that he might do well in having a little bit, being a little bit more circumspect? And, you know, if he were to have regrets or were to question some of the policies he's put in place, might he look especially at things like the inheritance tax on farmers?
So, of course, the incoming Labour government has made decisions that have impacted on specific groups in society, farmers, pensioners, etc. They were tough decisions, they're not popular decisions. But I personally think, Alex, that a Prime Minister is not there to be popular. They're there to do what's right for the country, and yes, to take difficult and unpopular decisions. Some of our most successful Prime Ministers have been extremely unpopular, going back to...
Brendan, I know that, but I don't need a popularity contest for our Prime Ministers. I don't care if the Prime Minister is one of the most unpleasant people on the planet, as long as they have the country in good shape. The problem is with farmers, they've protested once, didn't they? There was a sort of, you know, they all came down to Westminster. I've never seen so many barber jackets in one place in my life. And they've lobbied the government saying, look, these are the statistics. It's really going to impact on us. According to the Labour government, it's only going to make about 500 million quid. In terms of budget, that's coins down the back of the sofa. Still, the government was intransigent, and so they brought in a cavalcade of tractors. Quite a sight. And still the government's intransigent. So, you know, without doubt, the farmers aren't just suddenly going to go, oh, well, never mind, we tried, we're not being listened to. The problem is, of course, if the farmers decided to, say, go on strike or blockade roads, we're going to be in a real mess. This is going to affect food on supermarket shelves.
Well, of course, we hope that the farmers don't do that. But just saying, as I was, Alex, there, I don't think Prime Ministers are there to be liked. They can make unpopular decisions, and if by the time of the next general election the economy is growing, people feel as though they're better off, and some of the reforms that the government are talking about on public services, on planning, on industrial strategy, if those things start to seep through and people can see the pound in their pocket getting them more, the government will be re-elected.
But do you really think that the supposed 500 million quid that they're going to make on this inheritance tax on farmers is suddenly going to build a gazillion hospitals and make people feel the pounds in their pocket? I mean, it's just, to me, it is disproportionate. If they're honest, and I'm not sure they are honest, because because they said, oh, it's not going to affect very many farms. Oh, it's only 500 million quid. You know, I'd say, well, why bother doing it? You know, it's really not one of those that a sum of money that is going to really move the needle a great deal, which makes me then think, well, it is going to affect far more farmers, as the NFU is saying, as DEFRA have suggested. And in that case, if they're going to say, oh, well, let's, you know, pander to the unions when it comes to public sector pay, what about the farmers? They're blimmin' important. If the argument is it comes down to what is best for the country, people not being able to buy food is a big issue. I mean, I just don't understand why this one, when they've seen the reaction, when they've actually had those statistics from DEFRA, which is the Whitehall department, saying, look, we actually think about, you know, 3/4 of farms could be affected by this, why would they not go, do you know what, we've reviewed the figures and actually we're going to scrap the policy? That would have been a good idea, surely.
Well, of course, when this was announced, it was received by farmers very unfavourably. But if you look at most opinion polls, Alex, there is not a great deal of sympathy for changing this. People want to see everyone making their contribution via inheritance tax and all other taxes. Now, of course, in the grand scheme of things, the amount of money that will be raised by this tax will not be huge. And of course, many people can avoid this by transferring their estate to their children before they pass on. Now, of course, as you say, the sums raised are not massive, but it is a contribution. And if the government gave in to every opposition...
But the disproportionate fallout, if farmers then decide to go on strike or do blockades, like, you know, they're not going to back down, are they? They're pretty hell-bent on being listened to. It's going to be a hugely disproportionate disadvantage from applying this policy. If you just think, you know what, we've listened. We're in listening mode, we've heard you, we've seen all your tractors, we've been lobbied. We're going to reverse this. Brendan, look, thank you ever so much. I always love catching up with you, Brendan. Sensible man, actually, a Brexiteer to the heart. He was the chairman of Labour Leave. We worked together quite a lot back in those days. Now, I gave you some joyful breaking news in the middle of that segment. Our Christmas miracle has occurred. Mohammed Amars and Mohammed Ahmad, 20 and 25, have been charged with actual bodily harm after a disturbance at Manchester Airport involving police officers in July. That's according to the Crown Prosecution Service. After dragging their heels for essentially 6 months, half a year, those men at Manchester Airport have now been charged with actual bodily harm. I can hear you whooping for joy out there. Now, it gets better. Ready for a second whoop? No police officers will be charged over the Manchester Airport incident. Woohoo! Police doing the right thing, doing their jobs. Those guys charged. Finally, some common sense in the world. Much to be cheerful about with that breaking news. Right, I'm going to go and celebrate during an advert break now with a fresh cup of tea, but don't go anywhere because I am going to be back just after this.
let's get a voice note from Rowan.
Jingle bells, labour smells, starmers flew away. Rainer mentions tax on second homes that you won't even pay. Hey, jingle bells, labour smells, lamb is just insane. I can't wait for Trump, Elon and Farage to save the UK. Whee!
Hey, very good, Brad. 5, 4, 3. No, forget it. We're not even going to go there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back to the show. Now, just before the break, I broke you the news that Mohammed Amar's 20 years old and Mohammed Ahmad, 25, have been charged with actual bodily harm after disturbance at Manchester Airport involving police officers in July. That's according to the Crown Prosecution Service. That's right, we waited half a year, but it has finally happened. And even better news, no police officers have been charged over the Manchester Airport incident. Common sense at last. Lots of you have already been sending me loads of messages about that, which I'm just going to enjoy all to myself, because the problem is, ladies and gents, is once there is a charge, we can't talk about it, because it could prejudice the case. But let's just go whoop, whoop, and enjoy it, shall we? Because it really has taken a long time for common sense and justice. So, like I said, if we start banging on about this and talking about this and that and the other, that their lawyers could say, well, it's not a fair case now, is it? And then guess what? Justice won't be delivered, so let's just quietly celebrate in our hearts and in our souls. Let's also quietly celebrate, or vocally celebrate in our hearts and our souls, another decision by a judge, which is that trans children are not allowed to make gender treatment decisions without parents. The Court of Appeal also says decisions over future treatment could be reviewed by a judge. Common sense at last. Again, let's speak to Helen Joyce, Director of Advocacy at Sex Matters and author of Transgender Identity and the New Battle for Women's Rights. This is really good news, isn't it, Helen? Because essentially what's gone on here is there's a particular young child, a 16-year-old, a girl, who wanted gender reassignment treatment, and her mother really didn't want her to have it. And so it ended up in a court case where the teenager and the child's father had argued that decisions around cross-sex hormone treatment should be left to the child alone. And thankfully, the High Court has said, you know what, actually, parental oversight should be allowed. That's really good news, isn't it? The idea that a kid by themselves could say, I'm going to start this treatment. You can't drink alcohol at the age of 15, 16. Why on earth do you reckon children should be able to decide they want puberty blockers? I mean, thank goodness, at last, this has happened.
It is a significant case, absolutely, and what's really significant about it is that usually at age 16 children become competent to consent to medical treatment. And it's only if there's a reason to think, like, for example, that the child is mentally ill or is not mentally able to understand the issues, that you would turn to the parents to allow the treatment. And in this case, this 16-year-old, she is competent, she is mentally well, she's an intelligent young woman, and so on. And so the previous court said there couldn't be any basis for saying it's not her decision. And the appeal case said that the previous decision was made just after Dr. Hilary Cass's report had come out. And that in that report, it pointed out how there is absolutely no evidence underpinning the treatment pathway that is puberty blockers before 16, cross-sex hormones at 16 or onwards, and actually said that there should be a multidisciplinary case review for every 16 to 18-year-old who wanted to go on cross-sex hormones. So this is part of a long march back to sanity on the treatment of children who don't like being the sex that they actually are. Just another step, there's lots more to go. The mother has to go back to court again. Once the girl reaches 18, she'll be able to make the decision on her own. But basically, she wanted to get the hormones, she wanted to get testosterone from an online clinic, Gender Plus. And Gender Plus isn't set up to do the sort of multidisciplinary assessment that Dr. Hilary Cass said should happen before giving hormones to anybody. So, you know, let's see what it does. What it does is it does a few online consultations and then writes a prescription. You know, it's not anything about the mental health or anything like that. So, yeah, I don't know what the end state will be for this particular child, but it's yet another step in going back to saying that children who don't like being the sex that they are can't just be told they can change sex. It's not possible, and there's no evidence base for the hormone treatment.
How many people in the future do you think are going to end up bringing court cases against doctors, against teachers, saying I was too young to make this decision, I pursued treatment because at the time I read things on Instagram or whatnot and I thought this is what I wanted to do, but now I've irreversibly damaged my body? Do you reckon there's going to be a scandal in the future akin to, say, I don't know, the infected blood scandal or other medical scandals that we have had, when essentially treatment's been given to young children that was deeply inappropriate?
I mean, it's already happening in America, that's been handing out puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones to minors for a lot longer than we have and a lot more freely. And we're already seeing court cases there on exactly that basis, even though in America it's quite hard to get these cases through if you did say that you consented. I mean, there's even people trying to take cases under consumer fraud, basically false advertising. I was reading a post by a young woman the other day who had taken testosterone and had her breasts removed, and the fact was she was self-harming at the time when she was diagnosed as really being a boy and had her breasts removed. And she said, I was already cutting myself. You helped me to cut deeper. I got shivers when I read that. She's suing at the moment. So yes, this is coming. This is absolutely coming, because there is no evidence that this makes people feel better. And it's definitely bad for their health in all sorts of ways. It has irreversible impacts, including on their fertility.
Do you know, I actually often think this is akin to some of the sort of ghoulish treatments that happened in asylums in the Victorian era, where people were getting lobotomies for PTSD and stuff like that. It is a mental health condition. Even if it's actually genuine dysphoria, it is a psychological condition. Surely one shouldn't treat psychological conditions with surgeries. That, to me, is absolutely mad. Good news that, of course, there's been an indefinite ban on the use of puberty blockers by children wanting to change their gender on the grounds that the drugs pose an unacceptable safety risk. Yet, cross-sex hormone treatment, which is what was being sought in this particular case, is not covered by that edict. Should it be the case now that, you know, as a country, we should be looking at whether children can take, you know, cross-sex hormones?
Well, the NHS doesn't give them and hasn't given them under 16, and post-Hilary Cass, basically hardly anyone is going to get them on the NHS between 16 and 18. The issue here was that the child was going to a private provider, and that private provider, what it does is it has an overseas element that does the assessment, and then it refers to a local private provider for the whole hormone prescription. And Dr. Cass said really quite clearly in her report, though it was kind of out of scope because her report was on the NHS, that this was the next thing that needed to be looked at. I hope Wes Streeting, who has shown immense courage and leadership on this issue and has stood fast on the puberty blockers ban despite all sorts of horrific rhetoric about how he'll be responsible for children killing themselves by grown-ups who really should know better than to say that sort of thing. I hope he now looks at the private provision of hormones to people under 18. Because, actually, do you know what? People under 25, because as Hilary Cass said in her report, our brains don't mature until we're about 25. Young people are very risk-taking. They don't think about their long-term future. They don't think they might want children. They don't think through all the things that they might regret when they're 40, 50, 60.
No, I agree. I often wonder where all of this stuff came from, Helen. I think it's really quite cynical and really quite strange that this wasn't really anything we spoke about 10 years ago, and then it sort of started dominating the news agenda. It became a huge culture war. Culture wars are good. If it wasn't for culture wars, people like there'd still be abusing children with this horrible practice. But what instigated all of this?
Oh, really hard to answer, but I mean, you know, crazy ideas on American campuses and social media is my short version. I mean, kids radicalize each other online, and there's a social contagion here. I mean, one of the striking facts that came out in this court case is the girl who is 16 is living with her father and had a stepmother. And her partner is another girl who identifies as a boy, who's her stepmother's child. So, you know, the two of them have obviously decided together that they're boys, or at least that would be my guess from the reading between the lines. Obviously the child is not identified, and that's completely correct. You know, what are the odds? What are the odds that these two girls both had some amazingly rare mental health condition? Isn't it more likely that, you know, they have together made a strange understanding about the world that has been encouraged by social media?
Right, and isn't this the problem here? Because gender dysphoria, which once upon a time only existed in far less than even 1% of the population, it's sort of like 0.3% if that, has always predominantly been a male condition. It's why when you get a lot of these, you know, trans rights matters people out on the streets, they tend to be blokes in dresses. It tends to be something that has various overlaps with fetishes, but largely affects men. And yet 3/4 of the young people presenting at gender clinics were girls. Don't we need to have a conversation about young girls in all of this, and why societally lots of young women no longer want to be women?
Oh, completely. I mean, men who identify as women and girls who identify as boys are doing completely different things, and yet they're all rolled up together under the idea that they have a trans identity and they're suffering from gender dysphoria. You know, as you say, for adult men, it's very much associated with a fetish for cross-dressing and a desire to present as a woman for sexual gratification. And in teenage girls, it's part of a cluster of, you know, social and mental conditions that are to do with self-harm, eating disorders, autism, wanting to identify out as being a girl because that's a very pornified thing to be, you know, thinking that boys had it easier, that they, all sorts of things. They're just completely different things, and they're both very socially mediated. So the treatment pathway that was created for men, I don't approve of it. I don't think that we should be giving men estrogen and cutting off body parts and then telling them that they can go out and pretend that they're women and women will go along with it. But at least it was a treatment pathway that was for them. And now this treatment pathway is being used for sad teenage girls.
Yeah, no, it's evil. It is pure evil. Helen, thank you ever so much. Helen Joyce, Director of Advocacy at Sex Matters and author of Transgender Identity and the New Battle for Women's Rights. I've got a little theory, right? So hear me out on this. As Helen was saying, a lot of these young girls, especially, who wind up thinking, I'd much rather be a boy, tend to be influenced by stuff they've seen on social media. And the algorithms then push them into wormholes, especially TikTok, but Instagram as well, push them into wormholes where they get bombarded by this imagery, bombarded by this messaging. And they end up going, yeah, do you know what, I want to go and have top surgery, as it's called, and I want puberty blockers and this, that and the other. I mean, my little theory here is something that's happened in the past sort of 10 years is the cult of Kardashian. And they're famous basically for just being on social media, aren't they? And what do? Do they sing? Do they act? No, they're just things on social media. And when you look at the Kardashians, how many pharmaceutical products are sold off the back of them? All of the lip fillers, the Botox. I mean, they basically are just shilling for, you know, big cosmetic companies, aren't they? And isn't it funny that you got all these Kardashians, all beginning with the letter K, and then what pops up? Oh, the trans dad! And then all of a sudden, on the front of Time magazine or whatever it is. And I'm like, what is going on here? What is the relationship between social media, you know, the .com world, Silicon Valley, Big Pharma, and then the Kardashians in the middle? I don't know. I just think it's all sort of interconnected somehow. Right, we're going to take a short break now, but when I come back, I want to have a conversation with you. So why don't you pick up the blower? 03444 991 is the number to dial if you want to be patched through to the studio. 8722 is the number to text. Remember to talk before your text, or it hits the masks on top of Talk Towers. You can WhatsApp me on the long one as well, 03444 991 1000, or we're on X at Talk TV. I'm back after this.